of time.
O'clock.
Well, hey, everybody, what's going on? It's Wednesday. Happy birthday, DJ Maniac.
Yeah.
It's your birthday and you're off to work. Yeah, that sucks. My birthday's next week, actually, on Tuesday.
Jen's going to
I will be
Disney.
51 years old
Yeah.
on Tuesday. Yeah, oh, and that's another thing, too. I'll probably, announce this again at the end if I remember. But next Wednesday's show, I might push it back till Thursday because my siblings are, taking me to the Disney parks on Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm staying with my sister Tuesday night, and then we're probably going to be gone all day Wednesday. I think we're going to Epcot or something. So I probably will not be back home in time to do the show on Wednesday night, so we'll probably push it back till Thursday. I said that on the Patreon poll too, but I don't think that that's posted yet. But I'll keep reminding you guys so you don't forget. So don't be alarmed if next Wednesday we're not on normal. We just push it to the next day because I don't think I'm gonna be home, but that's all it is. So so yeah. Here's everybody. Darlord Vader. Okay, sorry, I can't see. Said I finally caught one live. Yeah, glad that you did. We do this pretty much every Wednesday night at about 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. So this topic right here. See, this is another thing that freaks me out. Yeah, everybody says serial killers and it's pretty rare and shit like that. However, people are always suggesting ones to me that I hadn't heard of before. And this guy I had never heard of before.
Yeah, me neither.
And you had never heard of him
No,
either.
I see pictures of him, and he's not real freaky looking. I didn't know who this was. Never heard of him. Looks like Che Guevara.
Well, he was kind of
beret and shit.
Well, he was real into the hippie thing. This happened back in 1968, 1969. Okay. And he was real up on the hanging out with the hippies and stuff like that because he was selling drugs and whatnot. So yeah, this motherfucker. And the thing about it, this is another one where I'm mystified why he's not better known. I will say he was only technically convicted of 2 murders, although they suspect that he killed at least 5. I've seen as many as 8, but some of the victims that they think that he killed, they actually did find them alive later on because, people disappeared and they were transient and shit like that back then. So, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, so he was only convicted of 2. But the thing about it was that the shit that he did to the victims was pretty fucked up. He went all dismembering and there was probably some necrophilia involved. So, it wasn't he's not remembered because he didn't do anything particularly horrible.
Yeah, it wasn't a run-of-the-mill strangler.
Right. Now, I will say that, some of the stuff that was said about him in the media at the time, oh my God, he removed their hearts and took them away, that wasn't entirely true. But it was, that was exaggerated. But it wasn't that far off the mark because he did take organs sometimes, just not their hearts, and it wasn't, a big thing. I think one of the victims had... I think it was maybe her uterus removed. Yeah. But, yeah, so it was such a big deal at the time that Kurt Vonnegut, the very famous writer, who I'm actually a big fan of, he lived on Cape Cod at the time, and he was, fascinated by this case, and he wrote about it. And he called this guy, the modern-day Jack the Ripper, because he did... his victims were not sex workers, but the shit that he did to him kind of recalled Jack the Ripper a bit. But yeah, so one of you guys recommended this guy, and I can't remember who it was, but I put it in the poll and it won, and I was fascinated to find out more about this dude because, and there's even been a couple books written about him. There's one called Helltown, which I read. It's on the Kindle Unlimited thing for free. You can read it. And then there's another one called In His Garden, which I didn't get to read. And then there's one, that was written by a girl that he apparently used to babysit when she was a kid, when he was a teenager in his 20s or something like that. And so she kind of wrote about her experiences. Yeah, he babysat kids when he was younger. It's a whole thing. But yeah, it's pretty fucking weird. Allison Wonderland says, even being a bit Jack the Ripper can't be good. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Any similarity to Jack the Ripper, yeah, it's a huge red flag right there. Huge red flag. Tammy says she's seeing Eddie Izzard next Thursday. I'm very, very jealous. So have fun and tell me all about it because I've never got to see him. Yeah, Leslie Russell said, I didn't know that this vampire. I know the Sacramento one. Yeah, I kind of feel like Richard Chase is the more, the better known vampire serial killer. And the weird thing about it is I'm not really sure why this guy, before they caught him, like the media gave him like all these, crazy nicknames. The Cape Cod Vampire, the Cape Cod Cannibal, even though, well, he didn't really eat any of the people, although there were stories that there was like bite marks on them. I think Tony Chop Chop, that was another thing they called him. But yeah, he had like all these fucking names and stuff. I'm not really sure where the vampire thing came from because he didn't really drink their blood necessarily. I think it was from the bite marks, I guess.
Chase literally thought he was a vampire.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I see that obviously because he literally thought he was a vampire and if he didn't have blood he was going to die.
Yeah, he was a disorganized killer with a bunch of
he was a nutcase.
Yeah, a bunch of psychotic delusions. He was not only was he a vampire, he was a Nazi vampire.
Which is the worst kind.
Yeah. Walk around in an old U.S. Army jacket with a .22 pistol, break into people's houses, shoot the women, kill the babies, drink the blood. He's sopping up blood out of yogurt cups and shit. He thought his insides were turned into powder, and he kept telling the doctors that his either his stomach or his heart was upside down. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's right.
He thought he was falling apart.
Yeah.
But he was, it was funny is he kind of looked like a damn demented, dirty, fucking Peter Murphy in a way.
He did rather.
Yeah, like Peter Murphy.
I always thought he looked very much like Peter Murphy from Bauhaus.
Yeah.
Like
you
in
thought
the
the same thing. I saw him and I was going, man, it looks like fucking Peter Murphy.
It did.
It's like Peter Murphy on crack.
It really did. Which I was gonna say Peter Murphy on meth, and I was just like, oh wait,
he's on meth. He's not on crack.
He was actually on meth.
He said,
later on.
Fuck crack. You can go right
meth,
to the fuck. Not a bag for the buck.
I guess.
Meth. So. Yeah. Running from the scene of the accidents and everything.
It's cheap, yeah.
Throwing fucking bottles at the damn audience.
Although, yeah, I will tell you, I'm on a couple of like Peter Murphy fan groups on Facebook and stuff, and I did see a recent picture of him, and he's looking pretty good. He looks like he's got his shit together. So I don't know.
Did he get a facelift or did he just come off drugs?
I'm not sure, but he does.
Was talking about getting a facelift fucking 20 years ago.
He does look a lot better.
Never got around to it.
He does look a lot better. So,
I hope he does, man. I liked Murphy's work.
I did too.
He was an asshole. He was an asshole to us. He was an asshole to Sonia. A friend of ours dated him.
Yeah.
He's just, he's an asshole.
Yeah. But
Yeah, and it was drugs mostly.
A lot of creative people are assholes. Yeah. Well, not a lot of them, I guess, but and a lot of famous people are assholes.
I don't think it'd have been that bad if it wasn't for the drugs. I think drugs made it worse.
Yeah, I'm sure. He had like a little bit of an arrogance issue, I feel.
Not enough ass beatings. You can get away with a lot of shit if your fans are a bunch of goths. You can throw shit at them and they'll put up with it and fucking take their phones. He was taking phones and shit out of people's hands and making girls cry at the fucking. And I was like, man, if that was my girlfriend, you just took her phone. I'd come up there and beat your fucking ass. Security, you're gonna need all the security. Your little fucking 140-pound ass to get stomped right in front of the fucking crowd.
Don't take people's fucking phones.
Yeah.
Too. That's fucked up.
Because I'd earn goth points off that. I'd be more of a man than you.
Peter Murphy's ass because somebody stole Jenny's phone.
Yeah, that's right. I would earn mega goth points. The goth dude that beat Peter Murphy up for taking his girlfriend's phone. Get all kinds of points.
Actually, your wife's phone now.
Yeah. It was girlfriend. Well, he thought that was my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Because he took it from her and then looked at me like, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
Like, nothing. I don't know that girl. But she was just standing next to me.
I don't know that girl.
I don't know who that is.
It's like, it's all right.
Had that been you, that fucking jumped up here and fucking snatched a fucking knot in his ass.
Snatched a knot in his ass.
Yes, and snatch a motherfucker so bad that it puts a knot into them. They got to go to the hospital. They got to get it untied.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. Fucking Peter Murphy.
Yeah, well.
No, but I hope he gets help.
I do too.
That's good that he's better, because he did some fucking good work, man. He can write some badass lyrics. I mean, I give a man credit where credit's good, where credit's due. When he was young, he was a good looking dude. I mean, super good looking.
Oh yeah,
Super good.
He is super hot, like back in the 80s.
Yeah, he let himself slide though. And drugs.
And into the 90s. I think he was still pretty hot, like into the late 90s.
He's still good looking for a long time.
He did, yeah. Because I saw him in 1998, and he was still pretty hot then.
No excuse though. He could have been like Bowie and been good looking until he fucking died.
Yeah.
Bowie was dying of cancer and still looked good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't all be Bowie, but yeah,
No.
we can all aspire to be Bowie. Though.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Bowie's the model.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, all men should learn from him. You don't have to do it the same way, but you should just learn how he did shit.
Yeah, you got to do your own version of that. Mr. 88 says, I've never heard of this fella either. Yeah, I had never had it also. And then somebody said, and then he also said, Chase is still regarded by the FBI as the perfect example of someone who should not be tried due to insanity. Yeah, because he did genuinely believe, it seemed like. Because, you can tell when people are faking it. They're trying to get an insanity defense and stuff, and usually they don't fall for that shit. Because it's really, really hard to get an insanity defense. You have to be really fucking out there. But yeah, Chase was, really fucking out there. He really did believe that his blood was turning to powder and stuff.
He had schizophrenia.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah, so a lot of other people have not heard of this guy either. Mr. 88 then says, I saw Kurt Vonnegut speak shortly before he passed. Oh, that's awesome. I never got to see him. Shook his hand. I think I've read, all his books. Alice in Wonderland said, Jenny's saying this all while drinking a suspicious red drink.
Yeah.
It's, cranberry juice.
Yeah, cranberry vodka.
I promise. No, it really is cranberry juice. It's actually cranberry pineapple.
Yeah, good
with
shit.
With vodka in it.
Ocean spray.
Ocean spray shit. Yeah, that's some good shit.
Try the cranberry pineapple. It's better than cranberry.
Yeah, it still tastes like cranberry.
It doesn't taste like pineapple.
I don't taste any
no,
pineapple.
No, just tastes like cranberry.
Yeah.
Just doesn't have that weird bitter aftertaste.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. They're talking about...
I can taste the pineapple.
Yeah.
When you think about it, yeah.
All right. So, do you want to get into this case?
Here?
We'll talk about
we got
this motherfucker.
All right. Let's talk about it.
This motherfucker. So, all of these crimes happened pretty much in... I don't know if I'd call this a spree or a rampage, but they happened in a pretty brief period of time. You know what I mean? A year and a half, something like that. 1968 to 1969, right? And this pretty much all happened in an area called Provincetown, which is on Cape Cod, which is in Massachusetts if you're not from here, which... Prior to this, pretty quiet place, and particularly Provincetown in the late 1960s was kind of a mecca for, artistic type people. So it was kind of if you couldn't go to, New York City or, Haight-Ashbury and San Francisco or something like that, during the whole hippie thing, a lot of them went to, so there was, a lot of transient stuff going on. So the hippie subculture was big because there was nothing going on otherwise. But as far as I know, it had been, I don't know if it started out as an artist colony, but it was very much like that. And it's even if you see pictures of it nowadays, it still looks like a very quaint New England kind of arty, funky kind of area. I've never been there, but you know what I mean. That's what it looks like from the photos. So so this whole thing started. They actually ended up finding 4 bodies in the woods, behind a cemetery in a place called Truro. And that's kind of what started this whole fucking thing going. Now, at the time they found the bodies, they didn't know who the killer was, obviously. So, as I said, that's when the media started coming up with these names like Cape Cod Vampire, Cape Cod Cannibal, stuff like that. Some of it is based on things that were maybe exaggerated. I'm not sure if the bodies having bite marks on them was exaggerated. I don't think so, but I do think the stuff about hearts being removed and stuff like that was exaggerated. But because there were bite marks, so a lot of people started calling it a vampire or cannibal or whatever.
Bites are actually pretty common in these.
They are, yeah. So that's not that weird to me. No. That it's because a lot of serial killers do that kind of shit.
A lot of them did that. That's how they ended up catching old Bundy, Ted Bundy. They lined up. No, it wasn't him. Yeah. He lined up the bite marks of the girls that he bit in the sorority, right? Isn't that how they got it?
Oh, is it?
Pretty much,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Just made a dental impression on him.
Right.
And put it over those bruise marks, and it lined up. I think that's how they got him. It's when he killed those girls in that sorority.
Yeah, that's right.
Bit one of them on the booty.
Yeah.
She must have had one of them peach booties. Or an apple booty.
Or maybe the dude was just gonna bite it, whatever.
He was gonna bite it,
whatever it
shape
looked like.
it was. Yeah, maybe.
Don't be weird, Tom. She's dead.
Who?
The girl who's Buckeye bit.
Yeah. I don't think she was dead at the time.
No, but I'm just like,
Right.
that's kind of fucked up.
Right.
Kevin says, I've been there. My family lives on the Cape in is it Barnstable or Barnstable? P-Town is cool. After this episode, I think I'll stay away. But this was a long time ago. This was like back in the 60s. So you're probably fine. And this dude, spoiler alert, is dead because he was only in prison. They put him in prison in 1970, I believe. He was only in there for 4 years and he hanged himself. He was 29 years old because I guess he couldn't hack it. So you know what I mean?
No future.
Yeah, well, they put him in there for life for 2
no
years,
future.
like I said.
And guys like this, they like to have control, and they can't have.
Oh,
control.
big time! This dude is probably like the platonic ideal of that.
Of a
He's
control freak, huh?
yeah, he's kind of like he's one of those dudes, which we'll get into in a bit. But he's one of those dudes where he's always gonna date like teenage girls, like when he's in his 20s, because he likes to be smarter than them, and he likes them to be submissive and all this other kind of crap. So it's that kind of stuff. So this motherfucker, Tony Costa, his name is actually Antone, Antone.
That's not Anthony.
I thought it was Anthony, but then because that looks like Antony to me,
Yeah, Anthony.
or Antone.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a thing.
Or
on it, though.
Anton. No, maybe you could pronounce that.
But then I
Anton.
watched a couple documentaries about him, and they were saying Antone, and I was like, that doesn't sound right, but I don't know.
Sound right.
But everybody called him Tony anyway, so
Yeah.
that's what I'm going to call him too. So he was born in 1944. Now, he was just a baby, and his dad died in World War II. Like, I think he drowned or something, somehow. Not really sure. Now, so he didn't really know his dad. Now, the story goes, and I'm guessing that this is, that his mom told this story. But when the kid was 7 years old, this kid told his mom that this man would come into his room at night, and when he saw a picture of his dad, that's who he said was coming in his room. So they're leading you to believe that his dad was like haunting him or some shit like that, or he was just making up stories like when he was 7. So this kid, it seemed like a lot of serial killers, there were red flags pretty much from when he was like a teenager, right? The first thing that he actually got in trouble for, when he was younger, he was really like taxidermy and weird shit like that. So we'll get into that a little bit too. But the first thing that he actually got caught for, this happened in November of 1961. He was 17 years old. And he broke into this apartment in Somerville, Massachusetts. And he broke into this teenage girl's bedroom and like hovered over her bed, like lurked over her bed like that. And she woke up and started screaming, and he ran away. 3 days after that, though, he broke into the same place and drug her out of bed and tried to drag her down the stairs of her, like, apartment building, right? But the neighbors, of course, like, heard her yelling, and they came in and be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Her parents weren't in there?
I don't know. I don't know where her parents were.
All right.
But a bunch of people, like, intervened, and so they kept him there until the cops got there. Now, he tried to claim that this was, this is a game that I play with this girl all the time, totally consensual.
Right.
Nobody bought that, though. And I'm sure the girl was like, what the fuck are you talking about? You just came and dragged me out of bed, you motherfucker. Yeah, so no one bought it. So he actually got charged with burglary and assault. He was a minor at the time, so he only got 3 years probation, a 1-year suspended sentence.
About how old was he again?
17. He was 17. And also during this time, during his teenage years.
And how old was that girl?
I think she was 12 or 13. Something like that.
Yeah, he tried to abduct and rape her. And kill her.
Yeah, obviously.
He was going to kill her, yeah.
And then he's just, I come over here all the time and tie her up. She's into it.
Yeah.
And everybody's like,
yeah, right.
I don't think so. I don't think so. So.
It's kind of raising its head in him already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, he might have done some shit before this, but this was the first thing that was like on record because he got caught. Also, supposedly, right before this time, like when he was a teenager and stuff, he was reportedly, I brought this up before, like babysitting like neighbor kids and stuff like that, and all the kids fucking loved him. Like, a couple of the people said that, yeah, he was, like, the best babysitter they had. Like, he would come over and he would hang out with the kids and, like, talk to them, and he took them to the park and all this other kind of shit. And, like, the kids just loved him to death, which is, like, really, really weird to think about. One of the people that he babysat, which was a girl named Liza Rodman, she actually later wrote a book about this, like, and it's called The Babysitter: My Summers with a Serial Killer. And she absolutely never suspected that anything was amiss with this dude at all. She just thought he was, like, super cool, which is, like, pretty creepy. And he apparently babysat, like, a lot of kids in the neighborhood, which is kind of fucked up.
He's in a highly controlled environment.
Yeah.
He can't do anything to the kids because he'd be a suspect.
Yeah.
And he's compartmentalized.
Yeah.
Where he's being good to the kids, that's his job, and he's enjoying that. It's not really crossing over into his weird fetishes, I guess.
Yeah.
So what's funny is that some people would say, well, he's pretending to be a good guy. No, that's probably who he was. That was one of his compartments. But he had another compartments that were just working real hard in him, and he was separated. It kind of like BTK. BTK could go to church and
his cubing.
Yeah,
that's what he called. That's what he called it.
Yeah, that just means putting it in a
different box. Yeah,
he's all compartmentalized.
Yeah, he didn't use that terminology, but that's what he meant.
That's what he meant, though. Yeah.
And I thought that might be, you might have something there, because this guy, and I don't know if this guy was just, like, bullshitting or whatever, but, like, after he got caught, he tried to justify it by saying that it was either a different dude that did the stuff, like a friend of his that, of course, they can never find, or it was like an alter ego type of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it might be something to do with that. Yeah. Might be a BTK kind of situation. So this book that I read about this guy, which is called Helltown, it's by Casey Sherman. And this is a quote from that book about his childhood and adolescence. It says, Tony Costa was fascinated by taxidermy as an adolescent and had a love-hate relationship with his mother, which he then projected onto his victims. For anybody that's seen the film Psycho, Costa was the living Norman Bates. He also said, Tony Costa was the most brutal serial killer since Jack the Ripper. I've studied the autopsy photos. I've studied the crime scene photos. These women were shot. They were stabbed, slashed, and dismembered. There's a real brutality here that Tony Costa projected onto these women, and I think it all goes back to his relationship with his mother. In his opinion, he said after his father died during World War II, Tony Costa wanted to keep his mother all to himself. Like I said, very Norman Bates. But his mother got remarried. His mother had another child. And I think the love that she had to provide to those two other people in her life created a void in Costa's heart and brain. That's his opinion, by the way. But that was, like, from the book that I thought was, like, really interesting. Like I said, that is very, very Norman Batesy. And I know Norman Bates is a fictional character, but that's kind of similar to what this dude's deal is. I also want to say, too, and I actually thought this was really interesting, but the book, Helltown, focuses a lot on Kurt Vonnegut and also on Norman Mailer, because both of those writers, like, lived on Cape Cod at the time that this was going on, and both of them were really, really interested in it and wrote a lot about it. Like, Kurt Vonnegut wrote an article for Life magazine, I think in 1969, about him, and he also corresponded with Tony Costa after Costa got arrested. Norman Mailer based his 1984 novel Tough Guys Don't Dance on this case. That was later turned into a movie in 1987. So both of the writers were, like, really interested in that. So there is, like, a lot of stuff about Kurt Vonnegut and Norman Mailer, like, in this book, because they both lived there and they were, like, really, really into it at the time, because this was, like, a huge, even though people have kind of largely forgotten about it now, this was, like, a huge case, like, back in the late 60s. Now, Costa actually got married in April of 1963. His wife, the girl that he married, was 14. And he was much older. He was 23 or something. He was in his 20s. And he married a girl who was 14 years old, which, tracks. That's kind of on brand for him. And he actually ended up fathering 3 children while the two of them were together. So he actually did have kids. I don't know what happened to them afterward, but yeah. At this point, like a lot of people in the late 1960s, well, this was the mid 1960s, but started taking drugs and shit like that. And it's funny because this one write-up I saw was like, drugs complicated the relationship. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this dude was probably like a loon before the drugs happened, so it's like, let's not blame the drugs here entirely. But yeah, I'm sure that didn't help, is what I'm saying. So a few years after this, in June of 1966, he actually brings home two hippie girls. Like I said, he was very into the counterculture at the time. Their names were Bonnie Williams and Diane Federoff. And he said that he was going to drive them to Pennsylvania, and then he was going to keep driving, and he was going to go to California, like, by himself. So he was going out to San Francisco. Now, after he got caught, he actually told the police that he had taken these two girls to Hayward, California with him, even though he said he was going to drop them off in Pennsylvania. However, they never got to wherever they were supposed to get to. So for a long time, people thought that these two girls were his first two victims because they didn't know where they were for like a really long time. However, I should note, because there are a couple of write-ups about Tony Costa on the internet that say that, yeah, these two girls were probably his first victims. That is not the case. They actually did later find them, and they were fine. They were alive and well. So I guess he did actually give them a ride to wherever they were going, or whatever, and they just kind of fell off the map for a little while. But they did find them later on. There is another victim that he supposedly was responsible for that was also later found alive, and that was a girl named Barbara Spalding, who was actually his girlfriend, and lived with him, I believe, in California for a little while in 1967, and then again, like, fell off the grid for a little while, and they didn't know where she was. So for a long time, they thought that he had killed her as well, but later on, they did find her alive. So if you see, sometimes, like, they'll say that, oh, he killed, like, 8 people, they're counting these 3 women, and as far as I know, those 3 women were still alive. So he didn't kill them. I mean, I'm not saying that it's good, because I'm pretty sure he killed 5 people, but he didn't kill those 3 women that he got accused of, because they were all okay. Another thing that happened kind of earlier on, like, or before his killing spree started, if you want to call it that, and this happened in August of 1967. Now, he was apparently out hiking in the woods in Truro, like in Massachusetts, with a girl, and he shot her in the back with an arrow, like with a bow and arrow. And he got away with it because he said that it was an accident, which I kind of doubt, considering all the shit that happened later on.
Didn't kill her, though?
No, it didn't kill her. She did survive. And he was just like, oh, whoopsie. I'm sure he was probably trying to kill her. And then when she didn't die, he's just like, oh, silly me. Butterfingers. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like that was what he tried to pull. Now, here's where it gets a little worse, because a week after that incident where he shot the girl with the arrow, there was an 18-year-old girl named Cindy Monzon, I think is how you pronounce her last name. I'm not entirely sure. She actually disappeared from her home in Provincetown. Now, her disappearance was reported to the police on June 14th. Now, she was missing for quite a while. Nobody knew where she was. Now, by this time, Costa had divorced his teenage wife, and had got a new live-in girlfriend whose name was Susan Perry. She was also a teenager, and if you see pictures of her, she looks it. She looks like a child. I mean, I think she was only 13 or 14 years old.
Damn.
He moves her into the house and calls her his kid chick.
Okay.
The thing about this dude...
This was legal in the state that he was in?
I don't know. Like, I kind of feel like maybe not. But, I mean, he did marry a girl when she was 14, which I always thought you needed parental permission for that.
He might have gotten that. Also
maybe he did. I mean, it was Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I don't know if, like, 14? That seems kind of... And I know it was the 60s. Maybe the age of consent was lower back then.
Yeah, I remember in Mississippi, in the 80s and in the 90s, you know, when I was growing up there, you know, visiting my dad and stuff, age of consent was like 14.
Yeah.
And I think you could marry a 13-year-old girl with
With permission.
Yeah, permission.
Yeah.
These are like laws from probably the 1800s.
Yeah, they're like
they
old
just didn't
shit.
really change them. They didn't care to change them. I don't think there was many people marrying people at 13. They just didn't worry about it.
So maybe they just didn't bother changing.
It probably stayed like that for a long time.
Yeah.
And then it probably went to where you could marry one at 16 without parental permission. It's probably still like that.
I think I'm not entirely sure, but I think most states it's 16 is when you can marry without permission. But some states might be 18. I'm not entirely sure, but I think 16 is pretty common.
Yeah, people get bent out of shape about this 18 thing. Oh, she was under 18? It only matters if she's under 18 if you're shooting porn. People get this confused. That's not age of consent. In most states, age of consent is like 16.
It's usually 16.
And then it's illegal if it's a teacher.
Or if it's somebody like an authority figure.
Yeah. But if it's not anybody directly connected, I think 16 is usually the age of consent just across the board. More or less.
I mean, I'd have to look into each state, but...
Yeah. 18. And here's the thing. Let's say you married that chick at 16. And you're 19. If you take a nude photograph of her, technically that would be child porn.
Yes, it would.
You could go serious, even though you're married to her.
Right.
So you can't take any pictures of anybody nude, unless it's like little kids, parents taking pictures of their
kids at the beach or some shit, or on the beach.
That's not the same intent,
right?
What I mean? But,
yeah, obviously.
Right.
But
So people get hung up on this 18 thing. They don't know the laws, and it varies state by state. But usually in general, it's like 16 is age of consent.
Yeah, I think that's usually like pretty common.
Yeah.
So I don't really know like how this dude was allowed to like marry a 14-year-old, but like I said, maybe he got consent from the parents. Because that's the thing about this motherfucker, and I think this is true of a lot of psychopaths of this ilk, is that they are very superficially charming, and this dude did seem to be like that. Now, a lot of people did say that he seemed a little bit off, but on the surface, he seemed like pretty charming. He was actually like pretty okay looking. As it went on, like later on, like he always had drugs. So he never had problems getting girls, like especially younger girls, like I said, because he had drugs, because he paid attention to them, because he seemed intelligent and philosophical and shit like that. He was kind of able to manipulate them into relationships with him, and kind of, I don't want to say that he almost had... It was almost like a Manson type thing that he had over them. Like, they called him Sire. Okay? Yeah. Like, they called him that. And I was just like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Yeah.
But, yeah, so it's just kind of like... But they were, they were much younger than he was. But I think he enjoyed, like, having this flock of, like, teenage girls.
Yeah.
Like, fawning over him and hanging on his every word and, like, looking for... instruction from him.
How old is he again?
I guess. Well, he's in his like
20s?
late teens or 20s at this point. Right.
All right.
That's what I mean. Sorry, I laughed at this because YP Post says BTK to-do list. 1, pick up donuts for church social. Yeah. 2, go over clove hitches at scout meeting. 3, sew goldfish into neighbor's stomach.
Yeah. He did that? He didn't do that.
No. Yeah. That's just like a...
He didn't do it.
That's like pretty fucking funny. Sew goldfish into neighbor's stomach. That's pretty awesome. But yeah. So he gets this girlfriend, Susan Perry, who, like I said, I think she was only 13, and she moves in with him, and he calls her the kid chick. And she lived with him. Thank you, Dermot. Thank you. Belated congratulations to you both. Greetings from my vacation in Ireland. Ooh, I hope you're having a good vacation. That sounds like super fun. But yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I forgot, like, you haven't been here in a little while, but yeah. In case you're new here or you weren't here, like, when we announced that me and Tom got married last week. Well, was it last week? Yeah, it was last Thursday, September 14th. That's when we went. But yeah, so thank you very much. That's really nice. Tom will thank you when he gets back. He's putting more ice on his shit right now. But yeah, so this girl moves in with him. And she apparently lives there for a week. And then she also disappeared. This was on September 10th, was, I believe, the last time that anyone saw her alive. Now, a couple people did ask where she had gone. It's like, hey, where's that teenage girl you had living here? I can't imagine the conversation. And he said that she had gone to Mexico. Now, I will note that because this is the late 1960s, you know, it's a time of, like, a lot of cultural upheaval and things like that. And I've written about a lot of serial killers that preyed on people during this time period, taking advantage of the fact that a lot of people were, like I said, transient or were runaways, or, you know, everybody that was into the counterculture was like, oh, we're going to go to San Francisco, or we're going to go to New York City, or something like that. So I do kind of feel like if they were teenagers and they just ran off, a lot of times it didn't get reported because their parents were like, oh, damn hippies, they just went off and did something, and you know what I mean? So I kind of feel like when Susan Perry disappeared and he told everybody that she had just gone to Mexico, a lot of people didn't really question it all that much. They're like, oh yeah, I suppose they do those things, even though she was just like a teenager. But it was very common for teenagers to be like running away and shit like that. But like I said, serial killers at that time like took advantage of that too, because people were just going here, there, and everywhere, and their families didn't know where they were for like a really long time. So there was that. Now, in mid-September, so only probably like just a few days after Susan Perry went missing, Tony Costa got arrested he got pulled over and he got arrested for driving with a suspended license. And he was, you know, kind of taken in, but then he was like let go. Now, a few days after that, probably like a week or two after that, on the 25th of September, he got picked up again because he wasn't paying child support to his, you know, former wife and children, because they had divorced at this point. So they actually kept him in custody until November 8th. Now, when they let him out, he started hanging around with this other young woman whose name was Christine Gallant. And she was another person that had come there because of the whole burgeoning hippie thing. And so they were hanging out and doing drugs together. Now, in late November, Christine Gallant was found dead in her apartment in New York. Now, at first, it seemed that she had died of a overdose of barbiturates, that she had drowned in her bathtub. So at the time, everyone thought, because nobody knows that Tony Costa is a serial killer at this point, right? So they're just saying, oh, well, it was an accidental overdose. She took a bunch of drugs and then got in the tub and then she drowned, and it happens all the time, and it was an accident. However, like after Tony Costa got caught, they kind of like started to look back and go, oh, well, maybe that wasn't an accident, you know what I mean? Or maybe he was there. Like they did find out that he was probably there when that happened. So, you know, that's a little suspicious. Now, as I said, Tony Costa was superficially a very charming person. Some people thought that he was a little bit off. He was a little bit of a loner. He had like a weird way of talking where it seemed as though he was trying to come across as like a lot more intelligent than maybe he actually was. You know what I mean? He had like a very flowery kind of way of talking. But because he became a drug dealer and always had drugs, like he was always pretty popular, like in the hippie scene. He would eventually actually have his own marijuana garden, which again made him quite popular because he always was the guy that had the weed, right? And as I said, he always liked to hang out with much younger girls who generally called him sire.
Ridiculous.
Also, yeah, I was just, as soon as like I read that, I was like, oh my God, you have got to be fucking kidding me right now. Like, and the people call him that, like, with a straight face. I tell you what, if you fucking asked me to call you that, I would hit you right in your face.
Yeah. Like asking a motherfucker to call you Lord. You call me Lord.
I'm like, no, yeah. I'm not doing that.
You can really only expect to have people call you Lord when you actually have the power of life and death over them, and it's like legal. I can understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not calling anybody that stupid
Yeah.
shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm just not. Like, don't try to like pull rank on me, motherfucker. You know what I'm just saying? It's not gonna work. So yeah. Also, I should note that Tony Costa was a police informant. So he was able to, one, I guess, I don't know if they knew that he was dealing drugs or not, but if they did, they were just kind of like, whatever. Like, because I guess he would, like, give them information about other ones, and they were like, okay, so we'll let your shit slide. Also, once he started killing people, he seemed like he was kind of able to keep tabs on what law enforcement were doing because he, had an in with them. So there was that too. Like, I don't know how many of his friends knew that he was a police informant, but he was. Now, on January 24th, 1969, two young women named Patricia Walsh and Mary Ann Wysocki, they actually disappeared while they were on a visit to Provincetown. Now, these two were actually, they weren't transient, they weren't anything like that. They were just there for the weekend, like for a vacation. They were actually from Providence, Rhode Island. One of them was a college student. She was like finishing out her degree. The other one was actually a second grade teacher. I believe it was second grade. It was elementary school anyway. Now they ended up staying in the same guest house as Tony Costa was staying. Now he had actually come there a short time before and actually I believe got a cheap rate on a room because he told the landlady that he was a carpenter, which he was. And so he would do things around the building, like fix stuff, for free room aboard, essentially. So these two young women ended up staying at this just completely randomly, ended up staying at the same guest house as him. So he kind of befriended them. And as I said, they were only there for a couple of days. And so Tony Costa left a note on their door asking them if they could give him a ride to Truro the next day. So they said that they would. However, after he got in the car with them, they were never seen alive again. The day after that, another note actually appeared on the landlady's door, and this was supposedly from the two women saying, oh, thank you for the hospitality, we checked out, blah-de-blah. However, it should be noted that Mary Ann's name was spelled wrong.
Yeah.
Mary Ann, like her Ann had an E on the end, and this one did not. So, a little bit fishy. Now, these two disappearances, unlike the disappearance of Susan from earlier, were reported pretty much immediately. Because these two women were expected back at their jobs and back at their classes, you know what I mean? And their families were like, yeah, they wouldn't just skip out, you know what I mean? It's like they had jobs and responsibilities and stuff. And they had only gone to Cape Cod like for the weekend. They just kind of went for a little vacation or whatever, and they were expected to come back and get back to work. Now, not long after this, Pat Walsh's Volkswagen was found parked at this old cemetery called Pine Grove Cemetery. Like, it was kind of parked behind there. And because this was kind of a small town and there was, all the locals, everybody knew everybody, and they were just like, look, we don't recognize this car and we don't understand why anybody would leave this car abandoned here. So it was reported like pretty quickly. Now, the cops started searching this area on February 8th. And underneath a tree, they knew to look under there because there was like pieces of rope like kind of around the tree a little bit, just like scraps of rope, and it looked like it had like red on the rope. So they thought that was pretty suspicious. So they started digging under this particular tree. Under this tree, they found a set of dismembered remains, a body cut into 8 pieces. I believe the first thing they found was a bag with a severed head in it. Because I watched the interview with like the cop that had found it. It was like the first one on the scene. Now, interestingly, because like I said, they were searching this area because they were looking for these 2 missing women, right, that had been staying at this guest house. But these remains did not belong to either Patricia Walsh or Mary Ann Wysocki, the 2 women they were looking for. These remains actually belonged to Susan Perry, who, as I mentioned, had been missing since the previous Labor Day. She was the girl that had been staying with him, like as his kid chick, his girlfriend. These were her remains. Now, a month after they found that. They also found a head and a torso that belonged to Marianne Wysocki. They found this in a big hole, like not far from this plot where Tony Costa had like where he was growing marijuana previously. Not long after that, they found the rest of Marianne Wysocki's body, and they also found Pat Walsh's remains. Now, all of the remains had been horribly mutilated with a knife. They had probably died from gunshot wounds, but they had been cut up. They had been dismembered, particularly like their breasts had been cut off. One of them had her uterus removed, things like that. Underneath these two bodies, they also found another body, a dismembered remains of Sydney Monzon, who was like the first one to disappear. She was 18. So these three women had all been buried in shallow graves. This was about 1.5 miles from where they found Susan Perry, first of all, because like I said, they expanded the search and ended up finding these other 3 bodies. Coroner also reported that he had found evidence of necrophilia. So, great.
Did he specify what he was talking about?
No, he did not.
Must have been some semen somewhere.
That's, well, yeah, I'm imagining that's probably what it was.
That old telltale semen.
Yep. Y'all get that shit everywhere.
Yeah. Never know where that's going to end up.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, that's fucked up, Tom. That's fucked up. So, obviously, the discovery of 4 bodies in Cape Cod was like a big deal. Because like I said, this was a very low crime area, very chill, like everybody knew everybody and shit like that. So everybody was kind of freaking out. Now, I will note, though, that the district attorney, whose name was Edmund Dennis, he was the one that kind of exaggerated the shit somewhat and probably made it a much bigger media, onslaught than it maybe would have been otherwise. I don't know. It was pretty horrific anyway, but like he added like all these details. Like he added the detail. One of the things that he said when they interviewed him, they did a press conference, right? And he said the hearts of each girl had been removed from the bodies and were not in the graves, nor were they found. This was not true. Also, he said a razor-like device was found near the graves. Also not true. Each body was cut into as many parts as there are joints. The bodies were dismembered, that's true, but they weren't cut into as many pieces as he's maybe implying. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, the first body they found was cut into 8 pieces, so that's not, like, a huge exaggeration. And like I said, the fact that, like, hearts cut out and stuff, that wasn't true, but it wasn't that much of an exaggeration because, yes, like, a couple of the, like, at least one of the victims had some of their organs removed and, like, taken, and then they didn't find them. So, it's an exaggeration, but not that big an exaggeration. So, yeah. And like I said, they didn't find like a razor-like device or anything next to them or nothing like that. I don't think they found any kind of murder weapon at all. But because of this press conference and the shit that he said about it, it made it into not just a national story, but like an international story. So it's like there was press from everywhere, and they just like kind of came to Cape Cod, and and a bunch of like tourists started coming so they could like look at the shit and everything like that. And as I said, it was around this time that they started giving this serial killer just silly, like, names. Cape Cod Casanova. That was another one that I didn't remember. Yeah. Tony Chop Chop. Or did they just call him Chop Chop at first? But then, like, later when they found out who he was, then they called him Tony Chop Chop. But yeah, Cape Cod Cannibal, Cape Cod Vampire. That's when they're, like, giving him all these names, right? Now, Tony Costa didn't actually become a suspect until after law enforcement figured out that the marijuana patch, because it was like a pretty big like garden where he was growing marijuana, they found out that it was his, that he was the one that was growing it there, and that was like right near where the bodies were found. Also, when they delved into witness reports and things like that, they were able to determine that this motherfucker had been seen with all 4 of the dead women prior to them disappearing, which again, that's a little suspicious. Also, they recovered this dumbass's fingerprints from the owner's manual of Pat Walsh's Volkswagen, which had been abandoned in the cemetery, which was what made them look in the, like, start digging around there in the first place. So there's that. Wear gloves, you know, that's a rookie mistake. Also, as I said, they discovered that Pat Walsh and Marianne Wysocki had been staying at the same inn where Tony Costa was staying. And when they searched his room, they found the girl's luggage in his closet, which, again, very suspicious. Now, they asked him, well, why are your fingerprints in their car? Like, why do you have their car? He said that Pat had sold the car to him and brought out this piece of paper that said, I, Patricia Waltz, sell this car to you for $900 or whatever the fuck. And, yeah. And then he said, yeah, they just sold me the car and then they went to Canada. Again, think of a better story than that, motherfucker. Jesus Christ. That's like, and of course the cops didn't buy that. So they arrested this dumbass and they brought him in for questioning. So they give him a polygraph test. He fails it. And he tries to tell them all these different stories and justifications about what exactly was going on. But of course he couldn't keep them all straight. He kept like contradicting himself and shit like that. So they gave him a psychiatric evaluation. And the first psychiatrist that looked into him said that he had a schizoid personality. A couple months later, they brought in another psychiatrist to assess him. And this one called Tony Costa a modern-day Marquis de Sade, which is something. Also called him a sexually dangerous man and that he was absolutely capable of murder. So there's that as well. So this dude's garden, like I said, his marijuana patch where they found the bodies and shit like that, ended up becoming kind of a tourist attraction because, you know, we love the true crime shit and it's like you're going to go see where the shit happens, you know what I mean? So they said they had all these tourists like go out in these woods in Truro where he had been growing pot. And they started, like, digging around because they were, like, looking, ooh, maybe we'll find some body parts that the cops didn't find and shit like that. I'm like, how exactly would you feel if you went out there and actually did find a fucking body part? I don't think you'd feel too good about it. Like, the idea of it maybe sounds cool, like, when you're thinking about it. But when you actually find it, I imagine it's probably not that cool. I imagine it's probably pretty horrible. But yeah. Also, there were kind of rumors going around, some of which still persist to this day, that there was, like, you know, satanic worship and all this other kind of shit, which maybe kind of tied in with, like, some shit that he did later when he was in prison. Now, here's another thing that this motherfucker did, because I kind of feel like this type of dude, this type of killer, they always seem, like, super arrogant, like they think they're smarter than everybody, which this dude absolutely was not, because he got caught. Not immediately, but it didn't take him that long to catch him because it's not like he was trying to fucking hide it or anything like that. And like then the stories that he came up with for why do you have this car and why are your fingerprints in it and why this and that and the other thing. And he always came up with these really dumb fucking justifications. He could
sounds
even,
like he's doing it on impulse.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm just saying that it's just like he doesn't sound like the sharpest tool in the shed is all I'm saying. But yeah. So he wrote this book, like a novel, which has never been published, and it was called Resurrection. And this novel, it's a fictionalized version of the murders, which, again, if you want people to think you're innocent, that's probably not the best course of action, is to write a fictional novel saying, yeah, I totally did that shit, or someone like me totally did that shit, but that's kind of what he did. Now, in his novel, he said that he had a friend named Corey. And this friend, they were out, him and Corey, his imaginary friend, were out with these two women that he was convicted of killing, Pat Walsh and Marianne Wysocki. And said they were out in the woods and they were doing LSD and like some other drugs and shit like that. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, Corey shot the two girls. Tony Costa is shocked by this. Why? Why would you do such a thing? And then Tony Costa says he jumped on his friend and like subdued him, right? And then he realized that Pat Walsh was dead, but that Marianne Wysocki was still alive. So he's like, well, at that point, I took my knife and stabbed her to end her suffering. That was his fucking story.
Yeah.
And
That's my story, bro. I'm sticking to it.
Right. That was his fucking story. And then he says, and then me and Corey buried the bodies, like, so we wouldn't get caught. I'm just like I said, not coming up with the best fucking stories
Dude's
here.
a buffoon.
Not coming up with the best fucking stories here. Also, this same novel, Resurrection, he describes in great detail the deaths of Susan Perry, the teenager who was living with him, and Sidney Monson, who was his first victim, as far as they know. And he says that both of them died of drug overdoses, and he had absolutely nothing to do with it. He just buried them because they didn't want to get into trouble.
Yeah.
And in this case, he says that it was his alter ego, whose name was Carl. He was the one that dismembered them and buried them, and that he had no idea what was happening until after it was all over. That's what this motherfucker said.
Okay.
I'm just like, okay. So, yeah. So, they caught the dude, like I said. They arrested him, and he got indicted in 1970 for 3 murders. Sidney Monson, Pat Walsh, and Marianne Wysocki. Now, his trial starts on May 6th, 1970. And his defense team tried to argue, because they're like, well, we're pretty sure he's going to be found guilty, so we gotta fucking soften the blow somehow. So they tried to argue that because of all of his drug abuse, that had made him like crazy or, disconnected from reality or something like that. However, Tony Costa, in his infinite wisdom, decided that he was going to take the stand in his own defense. And if his defense team had wanted to paint him as crazy, then this was not a good look, because Tony Costa gets up on the stand and is completely coherent and intelligent and articulate. So everyone's like, well, he's obviously not crazy, so he must be a fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
Because he just came across as completely normal. Like, he didn't come across as crazy. And, like, he just, I don't know, he just talked like a normal person. And everyone was like, all right. So the jury were like, all right, so obviously not crazy, probably a psychopath. So he was only convicted of 2 murders. He wasn't convicted of the Sidney Monson murder. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe they didn't have enough evidence in that regard, but he was for sure convicted of the other 2 murders. And he got sentenced to life in prison in May of 1970. Now, he got convicted, and he got transferred to Walpole Correctional Institution. And while in there, got super into the occult, because, might as well. Yeah. Had the Satanic Bible, had all that kind of shit. And I think that's where a lot of that kind of satanic stuff, like, happened later on.
So the motive was sex?
I'm guessing.
He had all these girls around him. Maybe it wasn't sex, but they seemed to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, some are married, and they go out and do this. I guess it's sex.
I mean, he was married and he had 3 kids. I don't know what happened to his kids, because I'm sure they were little.
Yeah.
Like, when all this shit was going on. Because, like I said, all the killings that he did was, like, in, like, a year period. It wasn't, like, a huge, like, span of time, because he got
caught. Yeah, and a bunch of teenage girls worship him like a cult member.
Right.
Or like a cult
It was very much, it kind of reminded me of, like, the whole Charles Manson thing. A little bit. Like, maybe not to that degree and not for that length of time. But had this guy not been caught, I think that probably would have continued, because he did seem to have, like, a cult kind of thing, and they did seem to think that he was, like, super charming, at least superficially, and he was just able to, like, lure these teenage girls into his orbit, and get them to kind of, like, worship him.
Yeah, which means he was having sex with them.
Well, yeah, I don't think anyone's denying that.
So it's not like he was doing this because he wasn't getting sex. He wasn't getting the kind of sex he liked. The kind of sex he liked, it involved you dying, I guess. You getting shot.
Yeah. And then you do fucked up shit to your body.
Weird.
Because that definitely, like, the shit he was doing to their bodies, it didn't seem to me, I'm not really sure, but it didn't seem to me that he was doing, you know, because, like, a lot of serial killers will do, like, a lot of torture beforehand because they like to see the pain and the fear. They get off on that. This dude, I'm not really sure. It seemed more like he had more of, like, a necrophiliac kind of...
Right.
Or maybe that was, like, the ultimate power over them. It's like after they were dead or after they were at least incapacitated to a point where they might as well have been dead, then he seemed to want to have sex with them then or start dismembering them or something. So, and I think it's kind of instructive here to say that he was real into taxidermy also. Like, even when he was a teenager, like, they said he used to go around, like, picking up roadkill and shit like that. So, like I said, very much like Norman Bates kind of shit. So he could taxidermy. And I'm not saying that everybody's into taxidermy as a serial killer, obviously. That would be ridiculous. But it does seem, in light of his later crimes, that he was kind of into that. So I think he was almost kind of, like, fascinated by girls and women's bodies as objects to be, like, taken apart.
Yeah, after they were dead, yeah.
After they were dead.
Kind of like Dahmer.
Right, because it really did seem like that was his main motivation, I guess. And it does seem, I don't even know, like, he did have sex with them apparently willingly, at least some of them prior. But I do think that he had sex with their bodies, like, at least in a couple of instances.
He wanted total consumption, I guess. Wanted to be able to just, like, totally use them up.
I kind of feel like maybe that's what it was. Yeah. It's like, the weird thing, it's like, I don't...
That way they can't cheat on you. They're dead. You can't cheat on you.
Yeah.
You got them forever. Something like that.
No, like you said, that is kind of similar to Dahmer.
Yeah, no way to lose them. That's the way Dahmer was. It was like they were his possessions forever.
Yeah.
And you know, he would own their souls in the afterlife and shit. He was building an altar.
Yeah. I mean, it's fucked up.
Something like that.
Yeah. But yeah,
just
so
trying to put myself in dude's shoes, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do. Like, I kind of feel like this. I don't know if this dude had a lot of insight.
Yeah, it could be
into his own behavior.
Might not have been all that bright, so he really didn't know why he was doing it.
But he was one of those motherfuckers that thought he was, like, super intelligent. Yeah. But to me, like, his actions, you know, demonstrate that he wasn't. And he was a police informant too, so he supposedly had, like, this in line with the cops, like, so he could know what was going on. But so I don't know if, like you said, it might have just been impulsive.
Yeah, some kind of impulse.
Because he did, and it's entirely possible that, you know, what he said in his book about having, like, this alter ego named Carl, it's entirely possible that might not be entirely bullshit.
Well, he sees the girl running from him, and he's got a bow, and he can't help it. He has this impulse to fucking shoot her with the bow, and then later, it was an accident.
Was that thunder?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gonna be a storm here.
Yeah, that was scary. That was scary.
I think it sounded like.
It did. That sounded like thunder.
Yeah,
that didn't sound like a car. But yeah, so he gets into, like I said, the occult and shit like that. However, he was only in prison for 4 years. When they came around one day, May 12th, 1974, they found him hanging in his cell with a leather belt. Okay. And he ended up getting buried near his mom in an unmarked grave, because that's what they do, in Provincetown. And I think there were some rumors around that somebody murdered him or something like that. But I'm like, even if somebody did, who cares? I mean, it's not like anybody's gonna miss the motherfucker, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So it's like, but I mean, by all accounts, he just killed himself. And I imagine it was probably just because, like you said, he's in prison now. He can't control his environment anymore, and he couldn't really take it, because he really did seem like somebody that needed to be in control of everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, killing the victim, I guess, is total control.
Yeah.
And then you got him.
Yeah.
Weird dude.
He is a weird dude. And I brought up Kurt Vonnegut before. He actually published his very famous novel Slaughterhouse-Five, which I read in school, and probably a lot of people read in school. he actually published that at around the same time that Pat Walsh's and Marion Wysocki's remains were found in the woods. And as I said, Kurt Vonnegut actually had written about the murders in Life magazine, and he actually wrote letters back and forth with the dude, like while he was in jail, and he called him a modern-day Jack the Ripper. Now, interestingly, Kurt Vonnegut's daughter, Edith, had actually been friends with Tony Costa. Like, you know, before anybody knew he was a killer.
Right.
Like, he knew later on. He's like, he said, this is what he said. He said, she met him during a crazy summer she spent on her own in Provincetown and knew him well enough to receive and decline an invitation he evidently extended to many girls. Come and see my marijuana patch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's probably good that Edith was like, no thanks, because probably she would have been killed also. But like I said, he seemed to hang out with like a lot of girls and he didn't kill all of them. So maybe it was kind of like a weird impulsive thing.
Yeah.
I don't really. Holy shit.
Damn.
Dude. That is like,
storm.
That's really loud.
Yeah.
That's gonna storm. That's okay though. It's like, it's atmospheric.
Yeah, and it's at the end of the show anyway.
Well, I mean, you know, I can't believe we've only been on for like an hour and 11 minutes.
That's 11 minutes longer than the shows were when we first started this channel.
I know, right?
We tried to keep it in an hour.
I know, but you know, but I like being on like a little bit longer though, because it's like, it's kind of fun. Yeah. But yeah, so actually, if you've seen the American Horror Story season, I think it was season 10, which I think was called Red Tide, that was kind of loosely based on this dude, kind of, because I think there like, it took place in Provincetown and they shot it there, and there were like these vampire-y kind of creatures and stuff, so they kind of based on this, even though, like I said, he's called the Cape Cod Vampire, even though he didn't do anything super vampire-y other than the bodies having bite marks on them, but he didn't like eat them or anything, I don't think, not that they know of. But like I said, he really did seem to have like a necrophilia kind of shit going on. But as I mentioned, if you have Kindle Unlimited, there's a good book on there called Helltown, which is about this. And it kind of goes back and forth between Tony Costa. And I'm going to say like a lot of it, at least from what I read, a lot of it seemed... I don't want to say fictionalized, but I'm just going to say he took some artistic license, because there's a lot of like conversations between Tony Costa and his potential victims. So I'm, you know, because he's kind of like laying out the scenario of what might have happened. So, you know, obviously you don't know if that's what the dude really said or what the victim really said or anything like that, but he's just kind of like using it to kind of paint a picture in your mind. And he's, like I said, the way he talks, he kind of extrapolated from the dude's novel and from his letters and stuff like that. Because like I said, he had this weird, like, stilted, kind of flowery way of talking. Because he wanted people to, like, think that he was smarter than he was. You know, and he was very into, oh, you know, he's reading all these, oh, yes, I was reading this Herman Hesse and I was doing this, you know what I mean? He was like that kind of motherfucker. So, so the way that he talks in the book is kind of what I imagine, like, he sounded like in real life. Like, just this fucking... overly, oh my god, I'm so smart, like one of those actually motherfuckers, like that probably had a fedora, if they had fedoras, like, you know what I mean, and a neck beard. It was just, he kind of reminds me of that kind of dude, but even though he kind of looked like hippie, because everybody looked like a hippie back then, but that's what he looked like, and he was selling drugs to the hippies. But yeah, so Helltown is really good. There's another one called In His Garden, which is about him, but I haven't read that one, so I don't know if that one's good. But like Helltown, I really liked it. But Helltown, like I said, there's a lot of shit in there about Kurt Vonnegut and Norman Mailer as well. So like it goes back and forth between Tony Costa and the crimes and what probably happened with all the victims and stuff, and then it goes back and forth like talking about Kurt Vonnegut and Norman Mailer and what they were doing at that time and shit like that, because they were kind of involved in the case to like some degree, and they're famous people, so that's why he was like talking about it. So yeah, and like I said, if you've seen season 10 of American Horror Story, it's kind of sort of loosely based on this dude, but I don't know if it says that on the Wikipedia page though. I think I don't know, but I just read that somewhere, so I thought I would mention it. I haven't seen it, but I don't know how closely it adheres to the case, so there's that. Proust isn't a color, bro. Yeah, okay. Okay, so now I'm trying to catch up with all the thing. Oh, Zach said that wasn't thunder. It was just Satan dragging the souls of the damned over your roof,
Yeah.
like evil Santa the reindeer. No biggie.
It was sound real at first.
It was totally loud. It was really loud.
It sounded like garbage cans or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't though. And it's raining outside.
Mr. 88 says, I had never heard the term video nasties until these weirdos named Jen and Tom did a show on it. Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
I was like, well, I knew about it from the 80s because, well, one, we grew up in the 80s, and I was like real into, I was kind of an Anglophile back then, so I knew like all about all this British shit. So I was really into horror movies. So it's like, so even like starting in the 80s, I knew all about like all of the fucking folderol that was going on about fucking video nasties over then all the shit they were banning and stuff, and it was just so fucking funny to me.
Very British.
It is very British.
Very British concept, yeah.
And it's hilarious because all of these kind of upper crust kind of twit people that didn't know jack shit about fucking horror movies at all, would just, the shit that got swept up in the video nasties, the whole thing, is just some of them were just so tame, or some of them didn't have anything to do with, and then they would let other shit slide. It was just so fucking random.
In that era, our uptight fucks would have been super upset over the fact that England had teddies. They'd show teddies in the newspaper. They would flip their shit here if there was just
it's so strange to me that it's like like the UK, they were very much into, it's like, well, we can't have people like cutting people's heads off and shit like that. They were more worried about that, which to me is more, I still don't still don't want them to censor it, as long as it's not real, but that's more understandable to me. Over here, it's a lot more like puritanical. It's like you can show you can show 50 bajillion people getting shot, and it's fine. You show a tit or a bush, oh my god, everybody loses their fucking mind. Or you show like a dick, and it's not even erect. And even still, like, I feel like even now they show a movie that has like a penis in it, and not an erect penis, just a regular ass penis. You know what I mean? Just hanging there like they do, and people will flip their fucking shit about it. I'm like, it's a body part. Calm down.
Well, it's not like that now.
No, I know it's much better now.
Back then it was.
But back then, you showed a dick in a movie, everybody heard about that shit. Everybody. And actually, like, tits were pretty common. Especially in horror movies, everybody's like, had a slasher movie, everybody wanted to put tits in there because then the teenage boys would watch it. But you couldn't put bush in there. You couldn't show a vagina, and you for sure could not show a dick. Everybody would flip their shit if you showed that, which to me is just like really, really stupid. That's really stupid.
It's hard to get porn. That's what those horror movies were all about, and a lot of those sci-fi movies and fantasy movies for teenage boys, because they showed titty in them. And fucking they were piping that shit in through cable, Cinemax, HBO, Showtime. We'd stay up late, man, during the summers in our teenage years, hanging out in Mississippi. We would go through the guide. They had guides back then. Every month when your cable subscription came like a TV guide. We wanted to see which ones had the N next to it for nudity. And if it had N next to it, we were going to watch that one. And they would always
write that one down.
We would watch that one. And that one was always going to be weekends, Friday and Saturday nights late. And it was mostly shit like Friday the 13th series. Fucking Galaxy of Terror. That had a good one with a woman getting raped by a fucking caterpillar, a giant caterpillar.
I mean, that's pretty fucked up even by today's standards.
There's all kinds
like
of
just
shit.
The idea of it, I'm just kind of like, ugh.
Right. And in the culture of the time, and if you're European, it was okay if it was in a horror theme and there was a bunch of violence. It wasn't seen as erotic.
Right.
So you could do it. Even in a horror movie. Even though it might be an erotic scene. Two people having sex and then they get killed.
Yeah. Well, because they're getting punished.
Right. You could get away with it that way. Yeah, in those days, looking back on it, some of my friends that I talked to online, and I lived in the Middle East for a while. A lot of my extended family is still in the Middle East. They went there to work as contractors and stuff. The United States was kind of like, it was almost kind of Islamic in that era.
It was kind of.
Yeah, it was kind of like something out of Islam. And, I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. It's just that when we were kids growing up in it in the 80s, we thought the adults were kind of fucking crazy.
Yeah.
They overreacted to everything.
Yeah. And they didn't know shit
they didn't
about...
know what they were
like
talking
I said,
about.
they didn't know shit about horror movies. They didn't know shit about heavy metal music. They didn't know shit about shit.
Yeah. They'd get up fucking tight about heavy metal because, you know, there might be satanic themes in it. But they're not fucking paying close attention to what it's talking about.
No.
You know? It's satanic themes only make sense in a Christian background. You know, you can't be an atheist and have Satan. And Satan was usually a character. You're like watching something out of the Evil Dead. It's a character in a movie. Like you get a Venom album. It's not about reality.
No.
You know, it's like you're renting a VHS copy of the Evil Dead 1 and 2. You know what I mean? So it was theatrical Satanism. It wasn't real Satanism, but adults bought into it, man. They were fucking
they thought they were
intimidated by it.
serious.
Yeah, but the kids knew exactly what it was. No, it's like a horror movie.
Yeah,
it's an album though, a whole band with a horror.
Yeah, nobody
theme.
really believes that shit. Come on,
did you? No. Yeah.
But that's what was so silly about it. It's like I don't know. I just kind of feel like even, particularly back then, they just did not understand horror movies. They didn't understand why would anybody want to watch. Oh, well, if you want to watch stuff like that, that must mean you want to do stuff like that. I'm like, that's not how it works at all.
Yeah.
I got in trouble in junior high or high school for reading, like, Clive Barker and stuff. Like, they sent me to the guidance counselor.
Yeah, must be something wrong with you.
Right, and I'm just like...
She must be disturbed.
No.
But
okay.
What's funny is that, for the most part, that generation is long gone. They're not in power anymore, or they're very old and dying off, and it's just not like that anymore here. But you have people that think it's like that now, but it's not.
It's not anywhere
It's
as
not
bad
like that.
as it
No.
used to be.
No.
Not like...
You'll have like Gen Z people thinking that Christian fundamentalists still run everything. No, they don't. Not compared to the way it was. You have no idea.
I mean, they're still around and they still whine about this and that and the other thing,
But they don't have any power.
most people don't listen to them anymore.
They don't have the power they used to. They don't have the numbers.
I'm like, been there, done that.
And you don't see them trying to shut down pornography. You don't see them trying to shut down fucking music and shit. They're listening. They're watching all that. It's a different fucking era.
Yeah, I'm just glad that the Satanic Panic shit
Yeah,
is gone.
Satanic Panic's over.
By the way, if you want to see a really good movie about that era, well, I really liked it anyway. Your mileage may vary, but it's called Censor, and it's about a woman who worked for the BBFC. Like, it's not based on anything real, but it's based on the real BBFC. So it's like kind of a bit about a woman, like this real uptight kind of woman that worked there back in the 80s. And I'm not going to spoil it other than that, but I loved that movie. I think that was like one of my favorite horror films that I saw like in the last few years. It was so fucking good. I was really into it.
The Satanic Panic people would have been my grandparents' generation, maybe a little bit younger.
Yeah.
They were older than my parents. It's just that your parents were caught up in this shit.
Yeah, we used to just laugh our asses
We would laugh
off.
our asses off.
Like, you'd see them be on the talk shows, like getting their panties all in a knot about fucking heavy metal bands and horror and the Evil Dead and everything. I'm like, bro, have you even like watched that shit? Come on.
And in those days, your parents would have been in their 30s, and they might have kind of bought into it. Like, wow, is that real? Yeah, it's not real. No, what they're talking about is not real. They're blowing, and it's
not real.
Oprah and fucking Geraldo Rivera.
Yeah, all this talk shows.
All these people.
Well,
that
people
today,
were watching it, you know.
They were the ones responsible for it. Now, if you went to go to Oprah today and fucking call her out on the Satanic Panic, she'd deny it like she was never there. No, that bitch was doing shows on that. She was help fueling the fucking Satanic Panic. Oprah.
They all were.
They all did it. Geraldo Rivera and shit.
Yeah, Geraldo, I think, was maybe the worst offender.
Yeah, he was bad at it.
Because he was really trying to get some eyeballs on the fucking...
Right. They're walking around holier than thou now. But when they were in their fucking late 30s and 40s, they were fucking sellouts.
Bitch, I was there. I remember.
Yeah, bitches were sellouts.
I remember.
Yeah,
what y'all
and they
were
knew
up
they
to.
were lying.
Sally Jesse Raphael. She was another one that had
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff on there.
Yeah, they knew they were lying too.
Yeah, of course.
They knew they were lying.
Well, like I said, they just wanted people to watch the shit.
Yep.
And, then as now, people are not any different. So anything that's controversial or crazy or conflict-based or something like that, people are going to watch that shit. That's just...
Man, they used to...
It's drama.
They used to pass around tapes at school.
Jenny Jones, that was another one.
Jenny Jones.
I
They
remember
passed around tapes at school that were like recordings off of radio, and we used to listen to them. There were shows about backwards masking. And
Yeah, I remember.
that?
Yeah, they did whole shows about that shit.
Yeah, and it was like, if you guys know what that is, they were certain people with kind of like religious affiliations were claiming that rock music had subliminal messaging in it.
Uh-huh.
There was backwards recordings that would get you to try to like worship Satan. And they would fucking
It worked.
play
I do.
Yeah.
Damn.
They would play that shit backwards. It was creepy as fuck.
It is creepy
And you
sounding.
would go like, man, maybe that's there. But we would pass that shit around in fucking middle school and shit. Listen to that fucking Walkman and shit. And on headphones, it would scare the piss out of you. You'd like,
Well,
man,
it's just
maybe that's true.
It's
It wasn't
inherently
true, though.
it's inherently creepy sounding.
It's creepy sounding. Yeah.
Like people talking backwards is just inherently creepy.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
it just is. So it doesn't even matter what they're saying or what you
No.
can imagine they're saying. It's just creepy.
They're focusing in on fucking Stairway to Heaven and shit, and Led Zeppelin and
Yeah.
all kinds of.
And it's like I
crap.
used to love that
The
because it's
Beatles,
like, oh,
number
listen,
9.
it's saying this and that and the other. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I don't hear it. Sorry.
Well, the Beatles song Revolution number 9, I think, did have some backwards recording in it.
Yeah, because they were fucking around.
They were fucking around with people.
Which is what I would do too.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of bands actually did start to do that.
Yeah,
later.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
after there was like such a big, we're like,
Yeah.
ooh, we're gonna
the
do it then.
The satanic bands would fucking say something, record it, and play it backwards, and then record that end of the fucking song. You could hear them talking backwards. And
Right.
Then you had to fucking put the stylus on your
Yeah.
old phonograph record, turn the record backwards so you could listen to it. Oh, listen to those motherfuckers are saying, pass the joint, pass the joint. You hear them? You hear them talking about the fucking devil.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shit was funny.
Oh my god, it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, they only did it like because they were
Yeah, because you were
fucking
talking
right
about
because they were talking about it. So it's like, hey, that's a good idea.
You
Let's
had
do
to
that.
grow up in that era to understand it.
Mr. 88 said nothing brought more kids to Satan in the 80s than the dumbass Christians bitching about it.
Yeah.
Kids would have not have cared if the adults had just shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I kind of feel
Yeah.
they just made it more of a thing.
Yeah.
Well, and the metal bands back then, the horror
like,
movie
yeah.
makers, they were like, yeah,
Yeah, let's get on. Let's
talk about it more.
Yeah,
Yeah, keep on whining.
yeah.
It's like our
They were
record
making-
sales are just going up and
They're
up and
making
up.
whole fucking bands based on it.
Sure.
But what's funny is that they'd pick on Iron Maiden, and if you actually listen, because the album covers, but if you listen to Iron Maiden's music and the songs and the intent behind them, it's classical English literature.
Yeah.
And Christian background, Christian stuff.
Sure.
In it. That's what it is.
I will never
And
understand.
today that would be called a Christian band,
Probably.
basically. Yeah.
I will never understand why people are so bothered by dark imagery.
Yeah, dark imagery fucks them up.
I guess because, and I still know people nowadays that are, oh, that's too scary, or that's too. I'm just like, are you a baby? What? You know what I mean? It's like I don't understand like why people are so upset by it. I don't get it. I can't hang with people like that. It's just, oh, that's too scary for me. I'm just like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Gen X Jason said, I watched Dragged Across Concrete based on your review and loved it.
Good movie, yeah.
Yeah, it was a really good movie. I liked it a lot.
My friend worked on that.
Yeah, our friend Brian Hackett worked on it. But yeah, that's kind of why I had been wanting to see it for a long time. I don't know why I put it off for so long, but yeah. Allison Wonderland said, hell, the Judy Blume books were poo-pooed when I was a kid. Yeah, I remember them like fucking freaking out about, what was that one? What was it called? I think it was called Deanie. I think that was the most controversial one. All of the Judy Blume books were controversial simply because she wrote about shit like it really was. Like, she wrote about a girl getting her period or a girl losing her virginity or some shit like that. And she wrote about it, like, realistically. I think Deanie might have had, like, abortion in it, so maybe that was why. But it's just, like, she wrote about shit realistically, and, you know, we can't have that. So her books were always getting fucking banned or people bitched about or something. They were more geared. Well, yeah, they were more geared toward teenage girls because it was kind of more what
coming of age
type stuff. But like I said, all the girls of my generation are probably like younger. All of us read those because they were like I said, some of the ones that she wrote like were kind of just silly, but they were all like good and they were all well written. But she did write a bunch that were relatable, and they were like really realistic, and they kind of like talked about issues that teenage girls would face, and it's like, so they were very relatable to a lot of people. But yeah, they were just constantly being put on like banned lists and shit like that because, you know, I didn't find them particularly controversial, but then I'm not like an old fucking biddy, am I? I'm not an old biddy back in the 80s who thinks everything, who thinks you can't talk about things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I don't really get it. Yeah. Sarah said, just as they thought rock and roll incited violence and violent video games. Yeah. And I kind of feel like they maybe, I don't think they bitch about that as much anymore, but they still kind of give video games like a little bit of shit every time something bad happens. But
yeah, nice try with that.
Well, and the thing about it nowadays is that if violent video games cause people to be violent, like everybody be killing everybody nowadays because everybody plays those. Yeah. Everybody. So it's just kind of like there's just no way that would cause anything because it's so widespread.
It's just condescending.
Well, everybody wants the easy solution.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we can solve X problem by just eliminating this one thing. That's just not how shit works.
Well, it's also they're also basically saying that people are too stupid to know the difference between fantasy and reality.
Right.
You know.
And to a large extent, most adults and even most children do know the difference, unless they have some kind of psychological issue. Right. But that's another thing. That's another thing that needs to be addressed. That doesn't have anything to do with the video game. Like I said, fucking serial killers, they could go out and kill people after watching the fucking Sound of Music. You know what I mean? Nobody would blame the Sound of Music, would they? But if it was a horror movie, then they'll blame that. But, Yeah, Poe said Geraldo found satanic panic evidence in Al Capone's secret vault. Mr. 88 said Geraldo is the worst. Not specific to the satanic panic, just the worst, period. Yeah, that guy is like a giant fucking douche.
They were all grifters.
A giant fucking douche. Yeah.
Everyone on TV, all those talk
like
shows,
I said,
they were all grifters.
All they wanted was
views.
Eyeballs.
Yeah.
Because they wanted that sweet ad revenue. Well, it's just like nowadays.
And it all built up to Morton Downey Jr.
Oh my God, yeah.
Remember Morton Downey?
Yeah, he's dead now.
He's dead now. And then his son, Morton Downey Jr., actually, he's a lot better. But Morton Downey, his show was the fucking worst of the worst. It was hilarious, though, because he knew he was the worst.
Well, it's just kind of like, it gets to a point where, you start out kind of normal and nice, like Donahue or something like that, where it's like, yeah, we're actually talking about, it's a little bit salacious, but we're actually talking about issues and shit without being too crazy.
Donahue ended up going crazy though.
But that's what I mean. Like as the 80s went on, it's like you had to be more and more and more out there to get people to watch because there was so much other competition.
Weeks and weeks and weeks of paternity test shows. They went that road for a long time. Remember that?
Yeah. You're not the father.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a whole
That
thing.
shit went on for fucking months and years.
And to be honest, I think 90% of the people on those shows were actors.
Probably. Well, we know one that went on one of those shows and he was an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty common.
Yeah.
Especially as the show topics started getting weirder and weirder.
Yeah.
Like, I'm marrying my sister and I don't give a fuck who knows about it.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like when they just got stupider and stupider.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what was that one, like Dan Bell put it in one of his videos, like because he loves all those old like talk shows and stuff, and he'll like put them in his Dead Mall videos. One of them was like those two ugly, that quote unquote mother and daughter who would like go fuck dudes and like get money from them, and it's like all we have to do is shake our titties and they'll buy us a car, and like and they were like completely disgusting looking.
Yeah, they were like fucking crack whores.
And they looked like crack whores. And I'm just like, that's not real. I mean, it might be real. I don't know what the dudes
I think
look
it was real. They were just a real slutty, skanky, white trash mother-daughter team that were running through guys, and they were just running through guys in the backwoods somewhere, in the White Hood,
I mean,
and they got them to act up because they pay them.
They pay him to come there, and they're
in the hotels, getting drunk at the hotel.
Yeah, they give him alcohol behind the scenes, like in the green room. They do that for one thing. Yeah, and they also stir up dissension between the guests, especially if it's one where
try to get them all to fight.
Yeah, like, hey, this person said this about you and shit. So they do that. They instigate shit behind the scenes, and they get them to exaggerate, like they get you to say like the most outrageous shit imaginable, because like I said, that's what people want to see. They want to see people smacking each other and like just saying like fucking random shit. And like I said, as the 80s and 90s went on, you had to get attention, you had to be like more and more outrageous. So it just obviously went that way.
What's funny is that all the old systems we grew up with that they used to use us to just control our opinions, because they would channel you through 13 channels basically, and maybe some cable channels, they're all falling apart now.
Yeah,
It's all going obsolete, which is
it's
great.
alright.
No centralized control. You guys don't understand, for you young people, how hard it was before the internet to get information. You were only dependent on fucking radio and television, and everything in a library was out of date. You just kind of had to trust what authorities told you. You know what you heard on television, what you heard on the news. Now with fucking social media, cell phones and cell phone cameras, you can find out the truth. They can't just spin it all into a narrative to get you to fucking give more power to the oligarchs, basically. They can't do that anymore. That's why they're so scared. Which they should be. They're fucking criminals. But like I said, this is like the 1600s with the advent of the fucking printing press. A lot of powerful, rich families are very afraid because they just can't spoon feed bullshit to you anymore.
Well, everything's just all over the place.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, that comes with its own unique set of problems. But honestly, I like it better. I would not go back.
Much better because you can't trust them with the bullhorn.
You know, it's just kind of like everybody is.
Yeah. You cannot trust them with the bullhorn. They will abuse it. They have always abused it.
And honestly, like even maybe I don't even know if this is like statistically true or not, but it does, like everybody's saying it's like, oh, you know, people are more polarized than they were before and shit like that, which I'm not sure that's the case because people have been polarized a long time.
Yeah.
But I will say that nowadays, yeah, it's much easier to live in your own little bubble, that's for sure, than it was in prior eras. But like I said, I'm not entirely sure that's a bad thing. I don't really know.
No, it's easier to find out the truth. It's easier.
Well, and it's easier to access other people's
Opinions
viewpoints and
right.
opinions and shit like that.
Yeah.
Much easier than it used to be.
Yeah,
So I think that's, I think that's a positive.
Much
actually.
easier to do a research and background research on some so-called authority who's trying to bullshit his way into a bunch of money. You know what I mean? You can defrock frauds a lot easier. You can search backgrounds of certain people. You know, you can select who it is you want to hear the news from, you know, and what their take of the news is. And everything's an opinion piece now. Everything. But that's good. You want a variety of opinions. You didn't get that before. You were just channeled
really.
down through the official fucking opinion. Because it made you easier to control. And, you know, the America's fucking economy was entirely based upon warfare, basically, with the military-industrial complex. So they would just say, these are the bad people. They're against democracy. Let's kill them. Let's kill their children. Bomb their fucking cities. You find out later on it had nothing to do with that. It was just about making money and keeping old men on pleasure islands with young girls, really.
Well, and like I said, it's much easier nowadays. Like I said, you know, with the advent of the internet and shit like that, you're much less likely to think of someone from, like, another country, for example, as, like, the other.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I play online games with somebody from there. They're, you know, I know some people from there. They're cool. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's opened the world up a lot more.
Yeah. Well, another thing is there's still a lot of Americans that are way behind. They think the outside world is just a bunch of uncivilized savages.
Which is, my God, it's hilarious.
Yeah, they think the foreign countries are like hell. You know what I mean? Well, of course they want to come here. Where they're coming from is terrible. I grew up in these countries, fucking Central and South America. These places are fucking paradise. Better food, you know, fucking fun. Yeah, some of them have problems, but
we got problems too. There's problems everywhere.
Yeah. Fucking the rest of the world's caught up with us. We're not even a military superpower anymore.
Well, I feel like we're not even, and I think I've said this before, but even back in the 1990s, when I went to the UK for the first time, the cell phones proliferated there much earlier than they did here. I was there in the 1990s, 95, 96, something like that. A lot of people had cell phones back then. And there were cell phone places like everywhere, and that was way before they became real widespread in the US. So they were like several years ahead in that regard. Yeah. Because I was surprised. I was like, holy shit, not everybody, but a lot of people had them.
Yeah, so these countries aren't technologically behind.
No,
as
not
much
at
as
all.
They used to be.
And in fact, some are ahead. Some are ahead.
Because some of them never got caught up in the old systems. We're caught up. Like some of these never had cable TV, so all their shit is internet. So they don't worry about cable.
You know the whole tap card thing.
Yeah.
Like the ATM card. They've had that in Europe a long time ago. They were just kind of like wondering what the fuck is taking you guys so long that you still got to stick it in the machine and shit like that, because they had that like a long time ago.
Businesses are involved, and
right?
for their
they had
survival,
that a long time
they
ago.
want to keep it a certain way so they make money. But yeah, I mean, even places in on the African continent, some of them are fucking, good places to live. What's his name went to Nigeria, and he went through a kind of like one of the upper end neighborhoods, and shit looked like something of the United States. They got the same shit.
Yeah, shit does not really look that different where you go. As long as
shopping malls and big stadiums and stuff.
Everybody's got that shit.
I mean, not in Wakanda, but it's a fucking civilized country, just like here in the West, So just Americans have a weird view of the outside world because America's so big. People don't have to leave.
They don't go.
They don't have to leave.
A lot of people don't go.
Yeah, it's like 50 countries altogether. It's kind of like the EU, bigger.
And I mean, yeah,
so they don't have to leave.
I get that because it's like the United States has so many natural wonders and so many things. Like it would take you a lifetime to see all the cool shit that's here. So like a lot of people are just kind of like, oh, they never go to other countries. You know what I mean? Yeah. But because there's a lot of shit here to see. I'm not saying that, but it's just kind of like a lot of people don't go, which is sad. Yeah. Because you should. I haven't been a lot of places, but you definitely should go someplace other than here. I've been to a lot of places here though. Been out west, been up north, been lots of places. Yeah. Camp Guy said, my daughter could keep up with the smartest adults by the time she was 12 years old. Yeah, I do kind of feel like a lot of kids by the time they're 12 or 13, they're pretty fucking sharp.
Yeah, a motivated person can become extremely educated just with access to the internet. Because it's all there.
Like I said, you can learn anything you want to know. Isn't that awesome? I would never go back to the 80s. Everything was so fucking difficult. And it's just kind of like, if you had to come up with some information, you had to like call the library or you had to do some shit like that. Now, like in 2 seconds, this shit is broken on my car. How do I fix that? Yeah. Dink. 5 seconds later. Oh, okay.
I can sit around for hours and just listening to Avi Loeb, one of the damn professors at Harvard University, talking about, extraterrestrials and fucking, cosmology. You can just listen to him for hours on these talk shows, long form talk shows. They didn't have that in television back then. You couldn't learn anything off TV. It was too stupid. TV was dumb.
I mean, like I said, now you can learn anything. Yep. Anything. Any fucking topic you want, you just fucking look for it and you can find all kind of shit. It's great. Yep. Camp Guy said, my kids barely know or have seen a pay telephone. Yeah, you don't really see them that much anymore, do you? No. My grandkid won't know what a payphone is except as an antique hunk of metal. Yep. Well, I kind of feel like now, like kids, if they saw one, they'd be like, what the fuck is that? Yeah. Because it doesn't look anything like a phone like they would recognize it, which is really funny. I can't even remember, when was the last time I saw a payphone? I saw one the other day, like in a building, and I was like, what the fuck is that doing there?
When you open up a cell phone or a tablet, I couldn't have imagined that in the 80s. With the internet and everything on the phone, I couldn't have. That would have been just like godlike power. Something you could only... Yeah. I couldn't even dream of that or imagine that.
Yeah, think of... Right. If you kind of just sit back and think of all the shit we have now... Yeah. That we really just take for granted. Because like I said, we were here the whole time. So we saw all of it develop and you're like, oh, that's neat. Oh, that's neat. But like if you just kind of forget that all that happened... And you're just like, look at all the shit we have now. You make a list. And then if you went back to the 80s... And like said, hey, we're going to have this, that, and the other thing... That would blow your fucking mind. Yeah. It would blow your fucking mind.
What's funny is you go back and look through history, human history going back to thousands of years, governments caused no progress. If anything, governments caused just nothing but damage. Where progress came from, it was all technology. Empires would rise and fall, governments would come and go. The advent of technology continued to climb. Even when fucking Rome fell, technology moved on. The so-called barbarians had better metallurgy and better technology than the Romans did. They just didn't quite apply it the same way. They didn't have a big empire. But that's what's happening now. Things like cell phones, internet, and fucking all this high-tech shit. Governments don't have anything to do with that. Those companies that make that are actually kind of subservient to those corporations. You got to watch corporations, too. Corporations are dangerous. You'll have Wayland Industries before you know it and fucking Tyrell.
If we don't already.
We already do. Yeah, they own our government, I'm pretty sure. Because if you look at who you vote for, they're always siding pretty much. They pretty much side for whatever fucking the powerful corporations. They're just their employees. Everything is just theater.
I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your screen name correctly, but Dentosama says, growing up with house phone and cable feels so different, especially when I'm in the desert. They're from Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just weird to think about. It's weird to think that the first half of my life, we didn't have any inkling of the internet. I remember when we first got cable, and it was just kind of like you had the little fucking box that sat on top of your TV that like slid like to the channels, and it was just kind of like, and I think there was like 72 spots. We didn't have that many channels back then. I think we had 40 something channels, and that freaked us out because when I was a kid, you just had like 3. Well, you had 3, and then you had PBS, and then when we got Fox 35, that was like a huge deal because like, oh my god, a new channel. Who ever heard of such a thing? Like when I was a kid. So it was like a freaky. And then like you got the cable in the early 80s and we're like, 48 channels? Holy shit. What could possibly be on all of those? A bunch of crap, as it turned out. But there was a lot of good shit too. But I'm just saying. So now it's just like there's so much entertainment. This is why I was thinking about this earlier today. I said this is why I'm not a big fan of people that just... because, there's a lot of YouTube channels or other channels that, like, their whole shtick is just, like, complaining about media, like, movies and TV shows and stuff like that. And I said, in a way, I don't really understand that because, dude, I'm like, in this day and age, you have essentially infinite entertainment. Infinite. You will never live long enough to see all of it. And if you don't like this thing, why waste your fucking time bitching about it? There's something out there that you will like. I guarantee it. There's just so much. So to me, it just seems like a huge waste of time, like pissing and moaning about shit you don't like. I'm like, just go find something you do like. It's got to be there somewhere. Like I said, you have essentially infinite entertainment nowadays, and a lot of it is free. So I find that I can't complain about that kind of shit. Because that never would have happened before. Before, if I wanted to see a movie, and I grew up in Daytona Beach, and if it was a big blockbuster, they'd show it. But other than that, if it was like an indie movie or foreign or something, you couldn't see it. So it's like I'd have to wait until it came out on DVD, and then I'd have to order it. And it was expensive. So it was just like a big deal, like to see something. Yeah. So it was kind of this big thing. It's like, man, I want to see this Lucio Fulci movie. And it's like, you know what I mean? You couldn't get it. So... Or I had to wait till I went to New York and went to, like, the video store up there and bought it. Or some shit like that. So you had to save up. So the fact that now that you can see 99% of everything that's ever been produced, like, with the click of a button for a couple of bucks is astounding. I mean, that's astounding.
Availability is astounding today.
It's astounding.
Just the clothes you can get at a touch of a
right.
But just on your phone. You can get any kind of clothing you want for cheap. Delivered to your door.
And we've talked about this before. Growing up kind of in the gothic subculture, it was a bitch finding clothes.
Yeah.
You either had to go to like the thrift store and like buy something and then make it, and then sew it and like make it your own, like alter it, or you had to order shit from Europe or from New York or something like that, and it was super expensive. Like you couldn't just...
I think I've told this on the show several times already. Back in the late 90s when I was with my first wife, I was at her place of business, and because it was real lax, I could go there and go hang out with her. And went there because she had a computer with internet. Not everybody had internet in those days. And we ordered some goth clothes over the internet from Hot Topic. You could get shit on the online store, and they didn't have it at the local store at your, in your shopping center. So we bought several $100s worth of shit. Maybe $300, $400. And you didn't get that much back then. Shit was expensive. And it was so fucking weird to me that I got that with my ATM card. And a few days later, it showed up at the house. I was just astounded. I thought I was in fucking Total Recall, or fucking
that's hilarious,
or fucking The Running Man.
It seemed like that at the time.
Yeah, it was like I was in
my
God
god
movie. Man, I got this, and I thought I got this over a computer. And then I fucking
it is.
And I thought of the fucking Hot Topic store in the mall, and I was like, "What's that mall doing there? What do I need that mall for?"
Well, that's how it went.
And that's what happened. We don't need that.
Shit. Well, like
But
I said,
it took decades.
nowadays
that was like 97.
you got a phone and it's just kind of like, I'm gonna go on Instacart. Hey, somebody go buy my groceries for me.
Yeah.
2 hours later, all your groceries turn up on your.
And then
fucking
for a few months later, for $100, you can buy this little console. You can hook up to your TV, put it in your phone line, and it was called fucking Web TV. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
It had a fucking.
We didn't have it, but I remember it.
Had a wireless keyboard. And you could go into the internet and do most of the shit that you could do during those days. You could do it over your television. This is before cell phones were really feasible, and the internet was not a big place. That was '90s internet.
Yeah.
Which was a spooky place, kind of like the Wild West, and you weren't sure. You weren't sure if what you were seeing was true.
And all the websites were ugly.
Yeah. Ugly square boxes and shit. Yeah.
And all the tag with like little lines under them and shit like that. Awful.
Yeah.
Like rotating, like spinning little gifs.
Something kind of nostalgic about it, though. It had a style.
Well, why do you think there's a whole...
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole subgenre of horror called analog horror.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with... A lot of it's like videotape and shit like that from the 80s, but a lot of it, too, is like early internet shit.
Right.
Like, so people will recreate like old fucking websites from the 90s and shit like that, like in a horror context. It's pretty cool, actually. I kind of feel like it's sort of on the decline now because it kind of had a big splash. Like,
and they had message boards.
Yeah.
And I used to go on this message board. It was called Kalishnikov. I think, I don't know, Kalishnikov something or other. Dot something or other. Been a long time since I've been on it. And you could just talk about AKs, because I had AKs at the time. I had AK-74. And I built it. It was a rat mill Cougar. Rebuilt it so it looked just like one of the military ones with the fucking muzzle brake on it and the correct furniture. And one of the fucking top users on there was a dude with a screen named Tantal. And he was in the Kalishnikov factory in Russia. It blew our fucking minds. He was like a celebrity on there. He could answer anything about all these fucking rifles, and he would upload photographs of shit that they were making in the shop at the Kalishnikov fucking factory. This is after the Soviet Union had collapsed, but the Kalishnikov company was still there, still working. They were making stuff, handmade prototypes. I saw that Bison submachine gun, the handmade prototypes that he and his friend were making before that shit came out. Only gun guys know what I'm talking about. It was kind of an AK 9mm Makarov fucking helical feed submachine gun. He was on that program. So it was a total mind fuck in the 90s to be talking to guys in other fucking countries building exotic ex-Soviet weaponry. And you know the guy.
Yeah.
And you're talking
like
to him.
Right.
That was like from another fucking planet. You go, I'm friends with the dude that built this. You know, fucking, because you could talk to him back in the day. There wasn't a lot of guys, a few hundred guys on the board. That was it.
Well, I think people take it for granted nowadays that you can just like send a message to a celebrity.
Yeah.
And they'll see it.
That didn't exist. Yeah.
Which it didn't really, because I mean, back in the old days, it was kind of like that was like a different tier of person.
Yeah.
They were almost like elevated above
the
rest of us motherfuckers.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you could send them a letter or something like that, but it's not like they would answer you.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't interact with them.
YouTubers like me and Jen, we would have been kind of like, back in the days, we were kind of like the television, the local television people of that era. Or, I guess, how am I trying to word it? YouTubers are kind of like television people of today.
Right.
It's the way television used to be seen. Television was not taken seriously. Television was like third rate. First rate was Hollywood movies.
Yeah.
That was first rate. But TV was like third rate. So we kind of replaced them. There's more of us. It's more democratized. But it was funny because we used to fantasize about getting your own fucking local access channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can have our own TV channel through cable. It only costs us a couple $100 a month. We should do it. That kind of shit. Not realizing that it takes thousands and thousands of dollars a month to keep that shit running, and you won't get.
You wouldn't get anything from it.
You wouldn't get anything out of it. You'd lose all your money. That's why people didn't do it.
Because the only reason that like TV shows
sponsors.
made money was because they had commercials.
Sponsors,
They paid for the shit.
Yeah.
Zach says, I still say a show about famous internet scams or computer viruses would be really interesting. It probably would, actually. I should probably do that. American Military 100 said, Jenny and Tom, have you guys considered doing an episode on spooky or mysterious internet sites or creepy videos? We did do one
Yeah. We should do it.
I don't remember what all we did on it, but there's so much stuff out there that we could probably do another volume.
Yeah,
so maybe I should.
There's a guy who's really good at that. His name of his channel is Wang.
Yeah.
He's like a long-haired kind of Korean-American guy. I think he's Korean. He does a lot of good shows on that and does follow-ups, trying to solve old internet mysteries from the 90s, that kind of shit. He's real good at that one.
That is like really fascinating
Yeah.
to me. I love all that kind of
Because
stuff.
the internet was much more mysterious in the 90s.
Yeah, no one was quite sure
Yeah. You
what
weren't sure
direction
what
it was
real.
going. You weren't
And
sure.
you weren't sure what you were seeing was real or if it was faked.
Zach says, "Oh, I love Wang. He's so hot.
Yeah, Wayne's good, yeah.
He's a good-looking dude. I will say that."
Yeah. Looks like fucking, like some kind of Mongol warrior.
He does a bit.
Yeah, from like, you know,
I'm trying to think.
Genghis Khan. He's a long-haired kind of Korean American guy. He's with a fucking mustache and beard like mine. Kind of young guy.
You're Ming the Merciless
Kind of like
facial
Ming the
hair.
Merciless. Quite entertaining. Good show. I think it ends with an exclamation point. I remember,
Yeah, that's what how's that put it?
W-A-N-G.
He says W-H
W-H-A-N-G.
with an exclamation point.
Yeah, real good channel. I'm giving it a shout out. Got a lot of good stuff, and he'll do. His show is good because he can do like a 20-minute show too. They're not live.
Right.
He just posts a lot of them. Like he had a whole series of shows trying to track down a fucking song.
I remember you telling me about that.
It's a really good darkwave song, and they don't know who did it.
See, I love shit like that.
Yeah,
I love shit like that.
Somebody just had a recording of it off of a German radio station that played darkwave music and early indie type music, and they recorded it, and it was on a cassette tape, and that song got passed around over and over again, and nobody knows who made that song, but it is a great song.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Joy Division song, kind of.
Yeah.
From what I remember. Nobody knows that.
I remember you like showing me that.
And I think it's in German.
Yeah.
Or Russian. I don't remember. Or
That's
English.
like really funny.
It might be English, but the accent sounds German or the accent sounds Russian. They don't know who did it.
Zach says, by the way, Jenny, I think you'd like the Internet Investigator. She's this goth chick with a deep as fuck voice who does videos on internet urban legends and disturbing stuff. It's so cool. Yeah, that sounds like right up my alley.
Yeah.
I'm really into that kind of shit. But like I said, we did do a show on creepy internet videos, and I think we covered a lot of the classics from back in the old days, but there's so much material there that we could absolutely do a volume 2 of that.
Yeah.
Because like I love that kind of shit.
Yeah, creepy internet shit.
I'm really into you guys probably have heard of Nexpo, right? Like he does a lot of analog horror, and he does like ARG type stuff, and he does like really long, he doesn't post a lot, but he does really long breakdowns of like ARG series and stuff like that, and he's got a great voice, like it's very atmospheric, so I really like to listen to those. He usually puts up one that's like an hour or an hour and a half long, something like that, but yeah, so I love all that kind of like anything to do with like ARG or like old mysterious like internet shit, like from the early days of the internet, is like really cool. There's something really creepy about it. Yeah, somebody just brought up Nexpo. Yeah, I really like Nexpo. But yeah. All right, so do you seem like you want to wrap it up? You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, we can wrap it up.
Because we're at 2 hours.
Getting late, yeah.
It is kind of getting late, yeah.
I'm getting hungry too. I don't know about you.
I'm kind of hungry too,
Okay,
yeah.
I'll get something.
Maybe we should get something to eat. We're always hungry. What are we talking about?
We didn't eat much today. We ate very little.
We didn't. I just had
Unless
that.
you were sneaking.
I would never.
Okay.
What, you think as soon as you leave the
know.
house?
I don't know. No, I don't know.
Because you went out to test drive your bike today, so you were gone for a couple hours.
Not drive.
Well, no, you were test riding it.
Yeah.
How long were you gone?
About
A couple
an hour and a half.
hour, 2 hours,
About
something
an hour.
like that.
Yeah.
like, so you were just out tooling around doing whatever it is that
Then
you do.
I stopped and got something to drink at Starbucks.
Yeah, I figured you probably stopped at Starbucks because
That's why I sent you the message.
You messaged me from there. Yeah. So I figured that's where
It
you
was
were.
good. I had to replace a throwout bearing in fucking clutch.
Yeah.
On the XB12.
But no, I did not eat a single thing. Like while you were, I didn't eat anything. I had 2 cups of coffee this morning, and then you gave me some of the vegetable curry.
Yeah, Jen's getting in real good shape.
That you made.
Jen's getting in real good shape. Her legs look totally different.
I told you I just got into that fucking corset that I haven't been able to get into for like a year or 2.
Yeah. Any of you people who are seeing any of our other video projects, our adult video stuff, Jen looks good in those, man, but she looks very different now. Jen's starting to become
I've lost a lot of weight since those.
Yeah, and built up a lot of.
And
muscle.
I'm
recompositions. Yeah.
I went in the gym this morning.
Yeah.
Doing my so we have a bench thing against the wall, and he puts the Olympic bar against my stomach right there, and you gotta push your butt up like that.
It's a glute thrust.
Like a glute thrust.
Gives you a big booty.
So I was doing a bunch of those today, and did a bunch of leg work today.
Yeah,
legs and butt.
And and the lower back and top of the back of the butt.
That's what we're working on.
Which is deadlift kind of stuff. To give
I was doing those.
It's like deadlift.
I was doing those.
Similar to deadlift.
Yeah, I was doing those as well.
Yeah.
So got in there and wore my ass out.
Yeah. Oh, you also did weighted sit-ups.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, I also did weighted sit-ups. I think I did 75 of those.
Yeah.
And I was.
But she's dropped.
Hating life.
She's probably dropped 25 pounds in about a month. Of fat.
Yeah, last time I weighed,
probably lost more. You probably more like lost 30 pounds of fat and gained back 5 pounds of muscle on top of that.
Yeah.
For a net loss of 20.
Because for however much I weigh, which I'm not saying, but I look a lot. I think I look a lot thinner than my weight would suggest.
Yeah.
I will say that.
You look like you weigh about 130.
But I weigh like more than that.
Not much more.
Yeah.
Not much more.
I was surprised, like I said, when I looked yesterday, like before we did StreamMate, and I had my little dress on that you bought me, and from the side, like my rib cage looked like really, really thin, and I was like, holy shit, look at that.
Yeah.
Because I don't usually look that thin up there.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, I tend to carry a lot of my weight in my abdomen area. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Weights are so...
I'm not like one of those lucky ladies that it's like when they gain weight, it's like, oh, it all goes into their ass or their tits. It's like, nope, mine goes right to my midsection.
For you ladies that are, over the age of 35 trying to get in shape using cardio, good luck. It'll never happen. It's got to be weight training. And you got to have your hormones looked at.
As much as I hate to do it.
Yeah. Weight training.
Well, I will say, like, it's like slow torture, but at least it's over quickly.
Yeah, it's more concentrated.
I will say that.
Yeah, it's
I don't enjoy it. I don't.
More like a sledgehammer.
Yeah. And
Cardio
it's and I'm in there going, kill me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you don't have any hormones in your body after 35, and most women don't, your cells just don't really respond to the training. You train, you get tired, you go to sleep, nothing happens. You wake up, you're exactly the way you were.
Yeah.
And it's just because your cells just don't work. You got to be on gear.
But honestly, between the weight lifting and the calorie restriction, which I have been doing that too.
Yeah.
And the stuff.
High protein dieting.
Yeah, high protein, low carb.
Yeah.
I still eat carbs. I'm not saying I don't eat carbs, but
a lot more protein.
I eat a lot more protein. I try to eat just meat, vegetables, and a tiny, tiny bit of carbs.
Yeah.
But between those two things and whatever shit that you have me on, that seems to be like working very effectively.
Yeah.
I have lost easily 25 pounds.
Yeah.
In
about
last
a month.
The last month, yeah. And it's weird because like I look in the mirror and I'm just like, holy shit, like it's like my legs and shit like that look completely different. Like the wedding photos that we took.
Yeah.
Because the lady took them like full body. I was like, oh my god, look how fucking skinny my legs are.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time my legs looked that small.
Well, they're shapely too.
Oh my god. Camp Guy said, aerobicize is the hottest thing I'd ever seen when I was a randy young man.
Yeah.
Leg warmers and headbands, says
Yeah,
Bo.
yeah.
So like I would compete with the girls on the video to do as many donkey kicks as they did. I remember that was very big in the 80s. They had those fucking high-waisted...
Yeah.
Or no, it would like... The thighs would come like way up
Yeah.
here, the leotards and stuff. And it's just kind of like they'd have the fucking headbands and the big fucking hair. Oh my god. I remember all that
aerobics
shit.
is wishful thinking. That's girl exercises. It might work if you're a teenager.
It works when you're
in
younger.
your 20s, but when you get
Once you're old as fuck like me,
it's too low impact.
It doesn't work as well
You gotta
anymore.
have a high impact on the fucking... It's gotta have a very high impact on the body, and you have to be taking supplements. I'm gonna use fucking... You gotta be on steroids. Okay, that's the truth. You gotta be on steroids to get the body
pretty much.
when you're older, because it's just a synthetic hormones. And
Yeah,
your
like
body
I said, I
responds.
don't like he injects me with stuff. I don't know what it
Yeah.
is exactly. Well, I kind of know what it is, but
It's Deca.
oh, okay,
100 milligrams.
shit's working good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just which I didn't. Turned out later the nandrolones. Traditionally, women, old school sports medicine, women weren't given that. But you had to look at the age demographics of who was being trained on this shit. For older, later on, I started talking to doctors and sports medicine doctors, and they said, "Oh no, a woman post menopause can take real gear. You just have to keep the doses reasonable,
Yeah.
And that's 19 nortestosterone branch, nandrolone. Wouldn't give her tren, but MPP.
Well, you better not take it either.
No,
we've had experience with that.
Yeah. But
you guys know, you're not allowed to take that anymore.
Decadurabolin or decadurabolin, also known as Deca. You can take that about 100 milligrams, but you got to be training. It's not like you just take it and it's a miracle cure. You got to be put demands on the body. And it's fucking highly effective on her.
It was the first thing that actually that I saw.
Yeah.
Very quickly that I saw like a result.
Yeah.
Like the whole composition started changing. Like the whole shape started changing.
Yeah, it's a lot safer than test for testosterone.
I told you that I got
men soak test up. I take a lot of testosterone.
Yeah, he does.
Fuck it, I'll take 400 milligrams of that a week, and then I'll put steroids on top of it.
Yeah.
But I never go above 1,000 milligrams.
But I mean, you're
week.
fine. You're not acting crazy or nothing like that. Not like when you were on Trent when you were acting like a supervillain.
Yeah.
But
Trent does that to everybody. Yeah. Pretty much.
Most people, they have that same.
And to give you guys,
I wouldn't advise taking it unless you're single.
Yeah. My shit, I usually keep it under 1,000 milligrams per week of anything, mixtures of fucking test and steroids. To give you guys a kind of perspective, 1,000 milligrams would be very, very entry level bodybuilder shit. Pro bodybuilders like between 4,000 and 6,000 milligrams a week. That's a fucking shit ton. I don't understand how they're doing it. And that's a lot of money too.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a lot of money.
Shit, man. I mean, our shit is expensive. It's not that expensive, but it's kind of.
Yeah, that would be $300, probably $300, $400, $500, $500 a month.
Yeah,
worth in gear.
I can't afford that shit.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, about 500 probably.
I did get another. I told you this earlier.
600.
I did get another comment on one of our YouTube videos. I can't remember what video it was, but about asking what had happened to my voice over the years.
You got deeper
because it got
rougher. Yeah.
I was kind of gonna answer it and be an asshole, but I was just kind of like, oh, I'm turning into a dude, didn't you know?
Yeah.
But no. Okay. It's just because of that. It's just because. And I was
showing Jen.
It's not even. It's not the stuff that I'm on now that's doing it.
No, it was already like.
It was the stuff that I took before.
Yeah.
It made my vocal cords thicker.
It was Winstrol.
Winstrol did it.
Yeah, because that was more associated with aerobic work, which is what you were doing at the time. That's what endurance runners take, which can give you kind of more of a slender type build, but you weren't putting enough aerobic stress on yourself to really get the rewards out of what I was giving you. Yeah. Although it did keep weight off you.
It did. But it deepened my voice.
If you were actually running.
It deepened my voice, and it kind of bothered me at the time, but then I was just kind of like... I mean, it didn't bother me until people started pointing it out. Yeah. And then I started getting self-conscious about it, but now I don't really give a crap about it anymore.
Yeah, and it is reversible. It takes time, but it's reversible. It won't reverse under the effects of what you're on now, though.
That's okay.
It'll stay like that. And
I'm just kind of used to it.
Yeah,
now.
to make Jenny to give it to perspective, and Jen, I showed her some fucking girls in porn that are on gear.
He's trying to make me feel better.
And I just look, see this chick, and she's hot as fuck. And then you hear her talk, and she's fucking twice as bad as Jen. Her name is Amy Anderson.
Yeah.
She's just porn.
Yeah, he showed me her, and he's like, listen to her voice.
Yeah, and she sounds like a duck. She's on a lot of gear.
She does, yeah.
You wouldn't know it by looking at her unless you're a pro.
Her voice isn't deeper than mine. It's just that I suspect
it's real nasal.
That her voice is deeper than mine, but she's trying to put on a fake voice to make it sound like not. And it ends up, like I said, sounding like a duck. It's super annoying.
Yeah, yeah.
It's super annoying.
Yeah.
She's super hot, but I'm like, how about you not talk?
Yeah.
It's just kind of that.
Right.
I said it reminded me of, if you guys have seen, we did a review of it a while back.
She's what they call it. She's the bimbo fetish.
Yeah.
She looks like a Barbie doll.
Yeah,
big
she's
fake
like a
lips, big titties, big.
She's like the classic bimbo.
Perfect body. Yeah, Amy Anderson is her name. You'll see.
What the fuck?
But yeah, she sounds like a duck.
She does.
But a lot
her
of
voice
that-
is really annoying. Like I said,
Yeah.
it reminded me of, if
Yeah.
you guys have seen the Steve Martin movie, The Man with Two Brains,
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the 80s, there's like a prostitute in that who's like super, super hot, and she's blonde and like the nice tits and
Yeah.
everything, and she opens this, like the fur coat, and she's naked and all this other stuff, and then she talks and she's like, "What's the matter with my voice?"
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
it kind of reminded me of
Yeah,
that. I was like, it wasn't that bad, but almost.
Yeah. Now, in the case of Amy, she was probably on a lot of gear to get. She's got a phenomenal figure. Okay. She's, if you're gonna look at like the bimbo fetish, she's got it. That's what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, that's her whole thing.
And who knows what she started off looking like? Probably nothing.
Or
like
sounding
that.
like.
Yeah, well,
We
she
don't
sound-
know.
She just sounded like a chick,
Yeah.
but she didn't look like that. No way. She didn't start off looking like that. So she took a lot of gear to
Yeah.
get like that. And she's probably on a pretty good amount to maintain that physique, which means that the voice didn't kind of go back to normal because
Yeah.
it's constantly being maintained.
It's definitely not normal,
It's-
that voice.
yeah. Well, I'm used to it though.
Yeah.
A lot of them are like that.
I kind of wondered though, like
Yeah.
when you showed it to me and I was watching it, and like the
Yeah.
British dude that was,
Yeah.
that was humping her in the video,
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, is that dude being like, man, I wish this bitch would shut up. Stop talking.
She's not that bad.
No, I know, but it's
She's
just
still
like, I
within
just
the
wondered.
female range.
I just wondered.
But then there's a fucking open class pro bodybuilder named Chelsea, and I like Chelsea. I've talked to Chelsea live on her fucking streams and shit. And she's outside the female range, her voice. She's still attractive.
Yeah, I think so as well.
She's just nothing but solid muscle. She looks like the Hulk. With
Yeah.
Imagine the Hulk with implants.
Yeah,
She's not-
she's a big woman.
Yeah.
She's a
She's
strong
stronger than
woman.
me. Much stronger than me.
Yeah, she could probably
Yeah.
like pound you.
And she's probably only about 5'2".
So my size.
Yeah, and probably weighs 200 something pounds. It's all muscle. She
Yeah,
has,
she's a monster.
Yeah, she has like no body fat. She looks like an anatomy poster. And it's kind of funny because she puts makeup on and she acts cute and pretty and shit. And she talks and she's got a real deep voice. It's rough, real rough. You know what I mean? But I think she's sexy. Other people, other guys, they're gonna get fucking cucked out behind it. They're gonna get sensitive. You know what I mean? Because she could fucking tear you apart. I fucking like that.
Tom kind of likes that.
Like, yeah, all right. Yes, indeed.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna train.
Man,
with you.
she could kick my ass.
Yeah, I would just want to train with her. We're gonna train, flirt with her.
Well, I like that. Like I said, that's one thing that I like about you, Tom, and I kind of have this as well. You have like a wide range of stuff that you find attractive.
Yeah.
Which I do as well.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different brands.
Sure.
You know what I mean? If the woman has perfected her brand, I'm about it. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's it.
That works too.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm kind of that way about just like I said, I'm not
like
real.
that with dudes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not real
She'll
like.
point out, dude, she thinks cute, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, I'm kind of disgusted, like too skinny. You know what I mean? Nerdy looking. But that's what she was. He had perfected that brand.
Sure.
You know.
I do like kind of like skinny nerdy.
Yeah.
dudes. I also like little tiny nerdy chicks.
Yeah.
But that's not like the only type that I
Yeah.
like. It depends on the person. Like I said, it depends on the individual. If they have a thing and they have an aesthetic and they have a whole thing going on, then I'm like, all right, I see what you're doing there. I like that. But yeah, like I said, Tom is very wide range. He's very
broad spectrum.
broadband. He's very broadband in what he finds attractive. Because like, well, sometimes like he'll like show me some porn or something like that and be like, that chick's hot. Or is it like the only thing that you seem to not like is skinny.
Yeah, I don't like skinny too much.
He doesn't like skinny flat girls.
No.
But other than that, it's pretty wide open.
This chick right there. This chick right there, she's the gear queen too. All right, and her voice is like twice as rough as Jen's, and I think she's gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Tom's gotten a lot into the fitness chicks lately.
Yeah.
Because since he started doing it.
Yeah, and she's not natural. She lives here in Florida. That's Bakar Nabiva.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll show you Chelsea.
But yeah, like I said, I kind of like that about you. Because you're just kind of like, that's sexy too. That works. That works. Like I said, really the only thing you don't seem to be into is super skinny girls.
No, if you're skinny and flat, you're out of running.
But other than that, it seems pretty... It seems everything is on the menu, other than that.
That's Chelsea.
Yeah. Yeah, that's her Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hey, I think if a woman can look like that if you want to. Yeah. That's what she wanted.
Well, like I said.
It's just for us, we're into fetish and body modifications and kink, and that's her body mod.
Yeah.
She wanted to look like that. I'm like, all right, fine. That's it. You got the brand. That's it. She looks awesome.
Well, see, that's what I mean. That's why I'm not, like, real uptight about shit. Because I'm like, look, if whatever look you want to have, just do that.
Do that. Right.
Just do that. And I don't think people should give you shit about it.
No, people say...
Look however you want to look.
Well, she looks like a man. No man with that amount of muscle looks like that. If you put her next to an equivalent male, like a dude who's just extremely jacked, she looks like a woman next to that guy. Yeah.
She's like, yeah, I'm drinking this. That was one of our sponsors, I think. But yeah, I don't like I said, just, get off people's case. Yeah. Like I said, like I said, it doesn't bother me, but I just think it's funny that, like, people would comment on my voice getting deeper. I don't know. I just think that's funny. Because I'm like, why would you, like, waste your time? I don't know. I don't know why people would waste their time, like, shitting on people that they don't know.
No, that's Chelsea. I think she's pretty.
You know who she reminds me of her face?
Who's that?
She looks like Laurie Holden, the actress that plays that played Andrea on Walking Dead.
Exactly.
Like her face kind of looks like that.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me. Like she has the same shape face and the mouth and stuff.
Her voice sounds like mine though.
It does a bit.
Oh yeah, her voice is
yeah,
deep.
because he showed me like Instagram videos of her and stuff.
Yeah, but still, I think she's cute. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, you don't gotta apologize.
Man, she looked like this. Sounds like a man. She looked like a man, and she. Well, yeah. When you stand next to her, she looks like a man, and you look like a woman. When I stand next to her, she looks like a woman, and I look like a man. But when I stand next to you, dude, you look like a woman too. If I were to have sex with you, it wouldn't even be gay. It wouldn't even be gay.
That's what. Yeah.
Wouldn't even be gay because we do a blood test analysis and the differential between my test level and your test level. That's the same difference. That's like twice the difference between a man and a woman. So yeah, you're a woman next to me, dude. You're a woman next to her. So
Well, like I said, I kind of feel like it's just all dudes that are intimidated.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
So we can just dismiss that because it's like, what are they crying? What are they crying about? You're obviously just intimidated because she can kick your ass.
Well, it's like me and Jen went to the Chinese buffet, and afterwards we went to get a cup of coffee at Joe Muggs. And I hear these two chicks behind me, and I turn around and look, see who was talking, and it was a little fat boy with his girlfriend, and he sounded just like a woman to me. Remember that?
Yeah.
I was astounded.
Like I said, I didn't get so much as they were loud. I think that's what because they were talking very loudly.
Yeah, and his
annoyed me because I'm just like, shut up, no one cares what you're saying.
And his voice was high pitched and Twitter, So compared to him, you sound like a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all right. I'm pretty zen with that now. Yeah. I think
that dude sounded like shit to me. He just sounded like a fucking.
I didn't actually realize like how different my voice sounded until I did go back. It's because well, a friend of ours, I'm not gonna say their name, but she said, "Oh, I was watching one of your old videos the other day, and your voice was like so much higher." And I was like, really? Because like I didn't really notice because it was a slow progression. Yeah. So I went back and listened to it. I was like, holy shit, I did sound like a lot different. Yeah. But I don't know.
Slowly.
It did happen slowly.
But she's jealous though. She's fat.
Well, yeah, I do kind of like.
She's fat and in your age, so she wants you to stop.
Yeah, she wants me to like not do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm to the age now. Look, I'm going to be 51 on Tuesday. Yeah. And I'm just like, the coolest thing about being 51 years old is that you no longer give a single fuck what anybody thinks about you anymore. It's awesome. I love it. That's like the best thing about getting older. Like a lot of things suck about getting older, But that's the absolute best thing, and I think it almost might be worth all the other shit. Is because, you know, when you're younger, you're just like really concerned about, oh my god, these people are gonna be mad about this, or it's like, you know, and it's like really anxiety inducing. And I was kind of like that too. But like once you get to my age, you're like, who fucking cares, man? The fuck do they know? Nothing. Yeah. So it's like, so I don't worry about it anymore.
Camp guy's in there talking about
it's awesome.
He can't do HRT because his doctor said his prostate wouldn't do it. Look, my experience, I wouldn't listen to a goddamn thing a fucking doctor says. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I went on test, and all problems like that I had went away. So
I mean, you really did. And like I said, we're not doctors. I'm not telling everybody to like do the shit, but I mean, in your case, you've really. I mean, you are completely different.
I had fucking type 2 diabetes. All that went away. You know.
Yeah, you got that from your dad.
They just don't want you on that because it's not patented medicine. The patents ran out.
I mean, your mood is a lot better, just like everything.
The patents ran out on those way back in the fucking 60s and shit. And so they can't really make any profit off of them. It's better for them to have you on statins and fucking all kinds of fucking bullshit treatments. They make money on treatments, not cures. A lot of the problems with aging is hormone starvation. The trick is with women. Women are hard to fuck with.
We're complicated.
Because what are you gonna do? Return her to the fucking what do you call it? Hormonal profile of a fucking 14-year-old girl, or 3 times that of a 14-year-old girl. They're fucking crazy. You don't want that. It's better just let them go postmenopausal and just do things that are like steroids, which is testosterone with the fucking masculinizing fucking features diminished. You know, so they can take more of that than they can test. There's whole fucking underground studies, and doctors do all this shit. They know all this stuff. It was doctors that made all them steroids. They took them too. But when you say steroids, they think it's some open class bodybuilder, and that's not what they're for. You know, just for speed healing. But they can also help in anti-aging. I mean, fucking Jack LaLanne was on this shit. He think he died at 97. He was breaking records well into his 50s and his 60s. He looked good. All the way up into his 90s. They got dudes that are in their fucking 70s that are just fucking ripped.
It can be done.
Yeah. Now, they didn't look like that in their 20s or their teens. Had they gotten ripped like that and tried to maintain that for fucking 60, 70 years, no, it'd fuck them up. You do it in the latter half of your life.
I think it's probably better to do it like that.
Yeah, there's only so much gas and there's only so much fuel in your tank. You're gonna burn up the fucking fuel. And if you start burning it up young, fucking then there's complications later on. That's shit you do after 35 and you keep it sane.
Yeah, just like anything else. Yeah. It's just kind of like, because if you start out doing stuff young and then then it'll fuck you up. But if you start out later, it seems fine.
Arnold was chewing down fucking Anavar pills and fucking doing fucking tests with, you know, at pretty high levels back when he was in high school. My understanding.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise that.
By the time he was 19, the motherfucker was huge.
Yeah.
And you look at his physique, and there's no way that was natural. No way.
Well, like you said, is like the younger you start, like the more you have to take to maintain it and all this other kind of shit. And if you stop taking it, like you start getting fat, and it's just kind of like, you know, and it can cause like other health problems as well.
Well, when you're coming off of it, they're testosterone suppressive. So your nuts stop making testosterone. It's like going on birth control.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing that you do to a woman when you put her on progesterone. Fucking her shit shuts down. You put a guy on test, and his normal production will shut down. So when you come off of it, you got to get your nuts you got to wake them back up. So you
wake up your nuts.
Yeah, so you can start producing. Now, if you're young and you come off of it, you produce a lot, probably enough to maintain the muscle that you built over the past couple years. But when you're my age, if I were to wake my nuts back up, there wouldn't be enough test there to begin with.
Right.
So, you know, once you're beyond 40, you're going to be on test for life, which I'm happy to do that. Yeah. The alternative is just get old and fat and fall fucking apart and get diabetes.
Yeah.
better to just take the test. It's cheaper. Then you don't have to worry about all the diabetes treatment.
Yeah, when you think about it that way.
Yeah. And
It
then
is
you're
like much
fucking
cheaper
healthy,
than all
you start
the.
getting leaner and fucking beating up fucking guys in their 20s and shit. Get out of here. Grab my wife's ass again, I'll fucking kill you. You know?
Good sexual appetite.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh my
Yeah.
God, Kitty's in the.
Yeah, so just take the test. Take testosterone. That's the way out of that. And don't ever worry about coming off. Same thing girls do when they fucking get tit implants. You can have implants for the rest of your life. What, is that a bad thing? That's not a bad thing.
Well, it's an investment in your future.
You're all right.
Jeffy Art says, "Wake up your nuts." Sounds like Tom should promote breakfast cereals.
Look, let's get off here, Jen. We've been on this forever.
All right, yeah, I am kind of.
We gotta make some.
I am kind of hungry.
Some food, yeah.
All right, so thank you everybody for dropping by this evening. This has been a fun show. I mean, you know, the first part was fucked up, but at least we got through all the stuff and then wandered off on some of our other tangents like we usually do. So hopefully you guys can drop by on Friday for our sidetrack show where we'll talk about even more bullshit or whatever it is that we usually talk about. Those are usually fun. So hopefully we'll see you guys then. And we will... Oh, Victor just got here. Hey, I made it. Now I feel kind of bad.
You're going to have to listen to this shit recorded.
Yeah, because we're going to go get something to eat. We've been on for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
All right. So, sorry about that, Victor. All right. So we'll see you guys again on Friday night. Good night.